Welcome to Boulder City Council meeting for our special City Council meeting. Madam City Clerk will call the meeting to order. If you can confirm posting a roll call.
Thank you. The agenda was posted in accordance with Nevada open meeting law, and all members are present.
We will open this for public comment. Anything on the agenda for today, which is pretty big, you can say pretty much whatever you'd want. And take all the time you need to do it, up to 3 minutes. See no one here, we will open. And if you want to call in, 702-589-9629, 589-9629. Seeing no one on the phone line and no one in chambers, we will close public comment and go to our special agenda. And we have a presentation.
Matter. Staff is requesting that item number 1 not be heard today, and this matter will be brought back in January.
Okay. I see no objections.
Yeah, and I apologize. Our finance director had a family matter that she had to attend to, so we'll bring that back in January.
Okay. And that brings us to number 2.
Hello, Angela Mannanen, Budget Manager, presenting the tentative capital improvement, 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal year 27. A capital improvement program is a multi-year planning document used by the city to identify capital improvement projects and coordinating the financing timing of the projects. CIP funding is annually appropriated, coinciding with the city budget process. A capital project is defined as replacement of infrastructure, buildings, roads, parks, water, sewer lines, or vehicles, and have a minimum life expectancy of 5 years and a minimum cost of $25,000. The purpose of the city's annual improvement plan is to monitor the state of the city's capital equipment and infrastructure. It sets priorities for replacement and renovation based on needs, funding, alternatives, and availability of resources. The city shall annually review its capital improvement plan as required by NRS. This includes current status of the city's infrastructure, replacement and renovation needs, and also potential new projects. All projects ongoing and proposed shall be prioritized based on analysis of current needs and resource availability. All related costs for every capital project, including but not limited to operation, maintenance, and replacement costs, shall be fully identified by a funding source. This year, utilities will enter into a rate study, so all projects proposed today will be vetted through that rate study process.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Oh, absolutely.
So we're allowed to ask questions. If
Please.
someone wants to ask a question besides me about utilities and the rate study, do we have a schedule for that?
We do. I believe it will. The contract will come to council in January, and then it will take about 4 months to complete, and it'll be implemented before next October. And the rates will adjust if needed in October.
All right, anyone else? Go ahead.
On the rate study, so if we have things in the capital improvement plan and we have the rate study and then we can't do the capital improvement, that will be taken into consideration and adjusted?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
So most likely a project would be pushed out, like if funding wasn't available or.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Is the study available to the public at all, ever?
How do you mean? We will have public meetings, and the UAC is involved in the rate study. So yeah, I mean,
Public meetings, good. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Proceed.
Okay. Okay, so this year's proposed 5-year CIP plan has a total of 53 projects for a combined cost of $131 million. In fiscal year '27, it's a total of 34 projects with a combined cost of $33.3 million. This chart is showing the funding sources for the 5-year plan. It totals $131 million. The largest portion is our enterprise funds at 41%, or $53.7 million. This is $3 million from the airport, $26.6 million for the electric fund, $14 million from the wastewater fund, and also $10 million from our water fund. The next highest chunk of the pie is outside funding at 25%, or $32.8 million. This is $27.2 million coming from the FAA to help support our airport, and also $5.6 million coming from RTC to support our streets. Governmental is 17%, or $21.5 million. This includes $8.6 million coming from our acquisitions and improvement fund,
Thank you.
$12.5 million from the pool fund, and $300,000 coming from our redevelopment fund. Our voter approved fund is 17%, or $22 million. And this includes $3.5 million of the annual approved spending of the voter approved fund, and also $18.9 million coming from the sale of Track 350. Our golf course surcharges are less than 1% at $415,000. And this is $126,000 from Boulder Creek and $290,000 at the municipal golf course.
On the golf course surcharges, with Cascada, that's because it's private?
Yes, not one of the cities.
Okay, and so the funding from there or revenue from there goes into,
Goes to Cascada. They pay us a lease revenue and they pay their water bill, but we don't get any of their actual golf revenue.
okay, thank you.
This next chart is just showing the funding sources for fiscal year '27. It's a total of $33.3 million, and it's 41% coming from the governmental, or $13.7 million. This is unlike our typical pie chart for a year of funding, and it's because we have the very large pool project, which is coming from governmental funding. If the pool project wasn't here, the governmental funding would be about 15%. But what's in here is $1.8 million coming from our acquisitions and improvement fund, $11.8 million coming from our pool fund, $150,000 coming from our redevelopment fund. And also our voter approved fund is very large, and again, it's because of the pool. So it's 29%, or $9.5 million, and $8.5 million of that is coming from the sale of Track 350, and $1 million is coming from the annual allowed voter approved spending. The golf surcharge funds are less than 1%. Our enterprise funds are 21%, or $6.9 million, which is $140,000 coming from the airport, $5 million from the electric fund, $400,000 from the wastewater fund, and $1.4 million coming from the water fund. Outside funding is 8%, or $2.6 million, which is $1.2 million coming from the FAA to support our airport, and also $1.4 coming from RTC to support our streets.
Angela, on this slide, Mayor, if I might,
Please.
if you could go into detail about the acquisition and improvement funds, the fund itself.
The fund itself?
Yeah, where the money's coming in and how the balance is maintained, please.
Yes.
Thanks.
So the next slide kind of goes over that a little bit. So the Acquisitions and Improvement Fund for governmental funding in fiscal year '27, it'll be a transfer in of up to $1.5 million coming from the general fund. And it also going in that fund is our $1 million annually. That's the voter approved funding moves to the Acquisitions and Improvement Fund to be spent. So also governmental funds for fiscal year '27 is our swimming pool fund. So $20.3 million in fund balance will be used for the swimming pool next year. This is from donations, voter approved funding, and also investment revenue. Since we started our voter approved fund back in 2024, we actually have $1.7 million in investment revenue. Our redevelopment district fund have resources of $150,000, which will be used to promote businesses in the RDA district. Our voter-approved funding for fiscal year '27 is 90%, it's coming from the sale of Track 350, with 90% going to the pool and 10% going to public safety CIP. For fiscal year '27, $8.5 million will be used for our pool. And again, the approved $1 million from voters will be used for governmental capital projects, and that was approved back in 2015. And so the voter-approved funding comes from 20% of our lease revenue. In fiscal year '26, our expected lease revenue is $4.6 million going into the voter-approved fund. We can only spend that $1 million that was approved by voters, so it grows at about $3.6 million annually. And at the end of fiscal year, the cash balance will be about $11 million, which can only be spent again with approval from the voters. The golf course surcharge funding, they both grow, both Boulder Creek's and municipal golf courses surcharge funds grow at about $150,000 a year. The Boulder Creek in '27 will use $126,000 to purchase golf course equipment, and municipal golf course will use $290,000 to purchase golf course equipment.
Go ahead.
You just mentioned there's 11 million that can't be spent, it has to be voted on. So what happens, how is that money held and what happens to that money? Just so the public knows.
It's in the voter approved fund, so it's just there until a ballot question happens and it's approved to be spent. So we do have the $1 million that was ongoing back from 2015, so that will be spent. And then we had the sale of Track 350, like any land sales has to go into voter approved. So if we have a land sale, we have to have the voters approve how we'll spend that money. So until we have a ballot question, it will grow for a future project.
And are we allowed to collect interest on that money?
We do collect interest on that money, but it goes into our acquisitions and improvement fund to support the CIP projects, because although the actual voter approved lease money needs to be approved by voters, the interest revenue does not. So it still goes to benefit CIP, just in another fund.
Thank you.
Angela?
Yes.
Just to give an example, because I always think examples, but could you, and not to put you on the spot, but could you mention, for example, how that voter-approved fund was used for the pool? Because there was a large, in addition to other funding sources for the pool, I know there was a large amount of money that was voter-approved specifically for the pool. And that
Yes.
would give you an example of how that fund is used.
Yes. So besides the land sale, there was also two other pool questions. One was for $9 million and one was for $7 million from the voters, and that's helped help build our pool, a big, large portion of it. So it's good to build up that balance, and then when a large project comes, we can have the voters decide how they would like to spend it.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, if my understanding is correct, and that fund is used in two ways. So each year, based on a separate vote of the voter approval, $1 million is moved over to the CIP for annual projects. But in addition to that, the fund continues to grow until there's a large project like a pool or some other facility that the city might need. And then we would take that on a ballot initiative to the voters and ask them, we've developed, we have accumulated this much funds, this much money in that fund, and we have this specific use, do you approve of that? And so moving forward, if there are other needs in the city, we could take that to the voters again.
Could I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes.
But you would never exceed the amount that the voters have approved?
No.
That would, okay.
Isn't a good example the fact that we had the ballot question that had language that said can use up to $9 million for the pool. So the 11 million is, are you just taking a 9 out of it as worst case scenario?
Yeah.
Right. And then if we don't spend the full 9, then whatever is unused will go back into that for the balance above the 11 million,
Yes.
right? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. So the proposed enterprise funding for fiscal year '27 is $140,000 from the airport, $5 million from the electric fund, $400,000 from the water fund, and also $1.4 million for the wastewater fund. Outside funding comes from the Regional Transportation Commission of $1.4 million, which will assist with our roads, and the Federal Aviation Admission of $1.2 million to assist at the airport. And the airport is benefits from the FAA because the majority of their projects are at least 90% funded from the FAA, depending on the type of project it is or type of grant that was applied for. It could be even higher than that, the match, or not the match, the funding. No,
Angela?
good.
Are we still out at the airport looking to put a tower in?
That project is ongoing currently, yes. It's not in the future projects, but it is current, it's in fiscal year's 26 CIP. So it is moving forward. It's just not listed here because there's no new funding going into it.
Okay, thank you.
So starting with our fiscal year 27 projects by department, the fire department has a total of $963,000 in capital projects for 27. This includes extraction tools, EMS equipment, a 10-year rope replacement plan, a multi-mission PPE. All of those projects we're going to apply for a grant. We don't know if we will get the grant. And so as of right now, it's being funded by acquisitions and improvement. But if we do receive the grant, the money would stay in acquisitions and improvement. We also have the
Excuse me, please, Mayor, if I might. Now here we're getting into the part of the presentation that's the proposed projects,
yes.
right? So I think it's important that we kind of have an understanding here. Are these the projects that have been presented to the executive team and have been vetted, and the executive staff has said, yes, we support these going forward? And these are the ones that the team supports for funding, and this is within the 31 million and change total funding. So we're not talking about here prioritizing or moving the coconuts, so to speak. We're talking, this is what's proposed, this is before us, and do we agree with the priorities that have been laid out as recommended by staff? That's what we're at, right?
Yep, absolutely. Staff's
you.
been meeting since August to discuss this,
Yeah.
so it's been well vetted by staff.
I have just a real quick question. In here, it says 10-year rope replacement plan, that it's 11,000. How come we have that in CIP?
We have it listed in CIP because we're trying to get a grant for it. Otherwise, it typically wouldn't be. It'd be in operations, but because we're attempting to have a grant, we have to show we're requesting it. So it's just
Okay.
assist with the grant process.
Okay, so if we don't get the grant, then we'll just purchase those for them to use. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Did you say what the TRT stands for?
Oh,
Technical Rescue Team.
thank you.
Thank you.
And that being less than $25,000, technically wouldn't be a capital expenditure, right? But if we're lumping it in, is that how it
Yes.
qualifies? Thanks.
Thank you.
And the grants, these are state grants?
This is all federal.
Federal grants? Thank you.
Then the last project, the one that we will not be requesting a grant for fire, is the HVAC utilities for the emergency management storage facility, and that'd be $150,000 from acquisitions and improvement fund.
I have another question on that. So these are federal grants. How, well, as grants go, are you counting on them? Do you have a plan B if you don't get a grant?
If we don't get the grant, we're just going to use the acquisitions and improvement fund. So that's why it's listed, right? We're not even listing the grant in our CIP currently because the federal grant process is rather slow at the moment. So we're just, if we get the grant, that'd be great. And we won't use the money in acquisitions and improvement, but if we don't, we can still purchase these through.
Okay, thank you.
So the next department is Public Works. So we have RTC assigned revenue capital projects, and these are our road projects of $1.4 million. We have water conservation of city facilities of $100,000. This is an ongoing project. Street sweeper cleanout of $300,000. This is a continuation of a project from last year. Our fire system replacement project of $100,000. This will be an ongoing project to get all of the city's buildings, fire systems up to code and just keeping all our buildings and people safe. Holiday decorations for $150,000 would come from our redevelopment district fund, and this would support the businesses downtown or in the RDA area. Recreation Center HVAC conversion of $250,000. This would be the design of the HVAC conversion at the rec center, which is currently swamp coolers. Our recreation center is also our cooling station, so it's very important to have it cool. Citywide HVAC replacement upgrades of $250,000. This again will be an ongoing project, and it has to do with refrigeration standards changing and the need to change out our air conditioners. And so the funding for these projects will be $1 million from acquisitions and improvements, and $150,000 from RDA, and $1.4 million from RTC. So our parks, the first project is a pump track of $20,000. This would be design of a pump track, and next year would be construction, or 28 would be construction. Veterans basketball court improvements of $48,000. Hemingway Park irrigation upgrade, construction of $316,000. This is a continuation of a current project. Park improvements of $200,000. This is an ongoing project just for all our parks to have improvements. Park irrigation replacement of $100,000. Again, this is another ongoing project. Our swimming pool recreation project construction of $20.3 million. The majority of that pool project is coming from our pool fund of $11.7 million. And also we have our first drawdown from Liberty Ridge or Track 350, so $8.5 million of that funding is going to our pool. And also the rest of those projects are being funded by acquisitions and improvements of $685,000.
I have one question here. Just for, I don't know what it is. What is a pump track?
It is a pedal bike track. So
Oh, a pedal bike track. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember, I would just like to add that that's a really good example of a project that came from our outreach to the community. We have a portal where residents can make suggestions to the city. There's a later slide that tells you how many we received, but that pump track was one of the many suggestions that we received directly from the residents.
And is that track just to kind of keep what we have out there maintained, or are we going to be adding to that track?
It would be, Julie, I think it would be a new facility, correct? Yeah. It would be
Okay.
an additional facility.
Are you talking about the one at the railroad?
Bootleg Canyon.
Oh, Bootleg Canyon. So where can I find that? You said it's online, where people actually ask for these things and the city put them in?
Yeah. Do you know where that is located on? It's on our website.
So
There's
you
a-
can put your requests in to bcnb.org CIP ideas, and that's where you can place your ideas. All the ideas are not listed there, but we could add to our CIP page what the residents have requested, or at least a summary of it, because there's been over 200 requests, so it's quite a
wow.
long list.
Okay.
So the pump track would not be available for the e-bikes, et cetera.
I mean, you're not pumping your feet. I let Julie talk about
If I
that, but
might,
I think it would be
a
damaged.
pump track is similar to the BMX track. They do a handful of pedals, and then the rest is berms, and you're using your momentum and your weight shift. And so, while I don't know if there's going to be specific signage of what's allowed, that's the type of track it is, and it would be defeated by having an electric bicycle, but
I want that on the record.
But they can. But they can.
Typically, an electric bike would not be used on a pump track. Could the pump track physically take the wear and tear of an electric bike? Probably, but it wouldn't, it doesn't, it's not suited for that. It's really for, like Councilman Walton said, that you actually exercise and you pedal and you get to go over the hills, and it's a really nice way to introduce users to bike safety and going around turns and going up and down the hill, and it could be an introduction to using the larger ramps that we have out there at the skate park, or introducing them to more BMX competitions and recreation opportunities along those lines. We just met last week on site at Veterans to discuss a potential track at that location as well. Met with residents out there, so.
And these are paved.
So they can be paved, they can be dirt, or they can be slurry seal. So we're thinking affordability-wise, but still has longevity, maybe a slurry seal.
So this particular one would be looking at a slurry.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
How often do you propose these would be used? I never even heard of it. So,
Daily.
But People actually use them daily?
Yes, the kids would be riding it regularly. Plus, it's a new amenity. I'm not sure if you've driven by like Del Prado lately. We redid that entire playground and put a new amenity in the playground that is a zip line. We don't have anything like that at all at any of our parks. And what was just a neighborhood park, because it has that new amenity, is bringing out people to actually be more of a destination park. You can drive by at any time and you'll see cars parked. So I think that's one of the things we're trying to do, is provide new amenities while also upkeeping the facilities that we have, but also attracting new people with new recreation opportunities.
Thank you.
I've got one. Julie, before you go, Director Callaway.
Yes, sir.
And then one for Angela. We have the broadband court improvements on the top list, parallel or on the same line as parks, but there's no dollar figure there. Is that under the pool?
I actually believe that might have been a typo, because
Okay.
that is funded the following year. The goal with that is to resurface the tennis courts, have 2 of them identified just for tennis. The other 2 resurfaced as well, just for pickleball, so that we have single-use courts in one location and have that be done in conjunction with the opening of the new pool.
Okay, thank you.
Julie, before you leave real quick, the Adventure Center, are you coordinating this with the chamber?
So we're in communication with the chamber regularly on the additional recreation opportunities that we're providing, yes.
And the funds, are you using some of theirs, or is it 2 separate fund bases?
2 separate projects altogether and funded. She's got state funding and grant funding for that. That's completely through the chamber.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may, just 2 quick points. I know the packet's rather large, so I'm told on page 154 is a description of the pump track and a few more details specifically to that project. And then around page 204 of the packet is the beginning of the list of resident input on CIP projects. And you can see the full list that we've received. I think it's around 200 suggestions.
something.
Thank you.
So my next question for you, Angela, we have under Public Works and under water conservation, some irrigation replacement projects, and here we have one under the Parks and Rec. Why the differentiation between those?
Not all our irrigation is in a park, so it's just, so our park turn it over to our Public Works Director.
Thanks.
Hello, good afternoon. So,
State your name, please.
Gary Poindexter, Public
Thank
Works
you.
Director. Thank you. Good afternoon. So, part of our facility improvements would be automated fixtures, upgrading toilets, sinks, faucets, sinks and faucets, sorry, and going through our different facilities and upgrading some of the, whether bathroom fixtures, kitchen, if it had a kitchen. So that's part of that improvement of water conservation, the backflows on the buildings, anything like that.
Okay, so
Not
those
all.
are different than this irrigation for a park?
Correct,
project.
yeah.
I see, okay,
So-
that's all I need.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it, thanks. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So any other questions on Parks and Rec before we go to the next department? So the next one is the Boulder Creek Golf Course. And we're going to order two pieces of equipment, and the funding for those will come from the surcharge fund. Also, we have an ongoing project there, just called Golf Course Improvements for $100,000. And this is an ongoing project. It's been used to replace bunkers, also cart path bridges, so it's just whatever we need to maintain our asset of the golf course.
A question on that one? Is the revenue from the golf course paying for this? Or
So the equipment is coming from the surcharge fund, which is a percentage of the green fees set aside in a fund specifically to be used for CIP at the golf courses. And then the $100,000 is actually coming from acquisitions and improvement, which you could kind of say is coming from the revenue because acquisition and improvement gets at least $1 million coming from the general fund, where the revenue from the golf courses goes to the general fund. So,
Okay. Thank you.
kind of, yeah.
Sort of.
Oh, no. Okay. So the municipal golf course also has some 4 pieces of equipment being purchased with their surcharge fund. And they also have an ongoing golf course improvements project, and it's funded at $75,000 a year. And so, again, that $75,000 is coming from acquisitions and improvements. The airport has one project next year. It's the Construct Taxiway D Phase 1. It's $1.4 million. This will hopefully restore the pavement and will last 20 years with proper maintenance. $140,000 of this is coming from the airport, which is the 10% match, and $1.2 million is coming from the FAA. For fiscal year '27, the electric has 3 projects. The continuation of Substation 3 rebuild of $3.8 million. The electrical distribution upgrades of $900,000, which is an ongoing project. And also the meter upgrades of $300,000 for a total of $5 million, which is being paid for out of the electric fund.
Can I back up one to the proposed projects for the airport?
Yeah.
I think it's important to note also that the 140,000, as we look at the 90-10 matching or split, that 140 is not coming from the general fund or any other part of our funding. It's coming from the airport enterprise account, from revenues generated for service occurring on the airport.
Correct.
Yeah, I just think that's important to note as those folks who might be listening or might not understand, why are we paying for the airport? It's its own account, and those are funds generated on-site at the airport by users.
Yep. So all of our enterprise funds, the airport and all 4 of the utilities and the cemetery, they're all paid for by user fees.
Thanks.
Okay. So the electrical distribution upgrade is a continuing project, and it's the city's electrical system, including feeders, fuse boxes, poles, and switches. And the meter upgrades are upgrades to the meters for commercial and residential meters, and they allow eventually for digital reading. Our water fund has 3 projects for next year. One is a large meter backflow replacement of $500,000, the Adams Boulevard potable main extension, and also our ongoing copper service replacement program of $650,000 for a total of $1.4 million. The Adams potable extension will bring water for fire to Substation 3, because currently Substation 3 does not have water available to it.
And you're talking our electrical substation 3.
Yes.
Right. I think
Yes.
that isn't clearly written
Yes.
down there. So when we have that substation 3, redo or build up, that it's going to have water on site.
Yes.
And that's where it's going. Thanks.
So our wastewater for next year only has 1 project currently. It's a sanitary sewer upgrade of $400,000. And this is an ongoing project to upgrade our sanitary sewer system to provide dependable services to our residents. So the city is focusing on water conservation efforts. Non-functional turf has been removed from the city to improve water conservation. At Oasis Park, we've removed almost 8,000 square feet of turf with an annual saving of 438,000 gallons of water. South Escalante Park has over 4,000 square feet of turf removed, which has over 234,000 gallons of water savings annually. And also Frank Crow Park has 2,700 square feet of turf removed with 148 gallons of water savings annually. So an acre foot is 325,000. These 3 projects save 2.5 acre feet annually, and an acre foot is 1 foot of water in an acre.
Angela, do we get any kind of incentive from SNWA on that turf removal?
As we just submitted for our first rebate at South Escalante Park, We have not submitted for rebates for any of the others. We haven't finished those projects yet. So we're still in the process of doing other things at Oasis Park and Frank Crow.
Okay, can you put in for parks that have been? Is it grandfathered, or it's only for the things that you're going forward from today on? Like all the grass that has been removed, can we put in for incentive?
We can put
For
in
that?
for, yes. We just want to be careful because what we get reimbursed, we could never build on that land. I mean, if it's a park, you wouldn't think so, but you can never put concrete or, I mean, it's not just not
Right,
putting
once
grass
you-
back in.
Once you move
but-
it, you move it.
Yeah, so you have to let it breathe to the air. So, I mean, you can't put concrete there. So if it's ever something that we'd put a path or a sidewalk or anything like that, you wouldn't be able to get a rebate for it.
So is that why we're not asking for a rebate, so we have that openness to change whenever we want to down the road?
Partially, and then also the Oasis Park and the Frank Crow, we're not complete yet. So once the projects are complete,
Okay, because you still want to conserve, so you never would put grass back in there.
No.
So why not just get a incentive for it?
the
Yeah.
one concern would be, what if we ever wanted to put a sidewalk there or some kind of concrete? You can't do that once you have the rebate and has the easement on it.
Really? Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
To look into that.
So in additional to removing ornamental turf, the city has taken out other steps to conserve water and improve functionality in many areas. In Bravo Field, we replaced the old irrigation. In the veteran ball fields, we replaced irrigation and changed the grass type. The Xeriscape Park, we replaced the irrigation and changed the landscape. Parks and landscapes, we've been having irrigation management to minimize water waste. The municipal golf course, all par 3 tees surfaces were converted to Bermuda grass, and this did not only reduce water use, but it also improved playability. So when we present the 5-year CIP, we're really asking for funding for the first year, so next year will be fiscal year 27. We do need a 5-year plan because we have to have a plan to know what we're going to do in the future. But really, the focus is on fiscal year 27. The next, our CIP, as we can see in the past, like always changes. Their needs change. And so these are our proposed projects for our 5 years, but they are definitely not set in stone because things change. But before I go on to the larger list, does anyone have any questions about just the upcoming years?
I just
Plan.
had one question, because I was writing. I think you said we're replacing the grass with Bermuda grass, and where is that?
We have
With
done it
areas
at
like the-
several of the parks, actually. We did it at the par 3 tee surfaces at the municipal golf course. We actually did Bermuda in front of the Parks and Rec Center, and it's just been a process of changing it out and just putting more drought-tolerant grass in around the city.
Thank you.
Okay. So now, the 5-year list. So starting with fire, currently, we only have a plan for fiscal year 27. We don't have outgoing projects. This is Public Works, and a big chunk of this is RTC assigned revenue for our roads. It's a total of $5.6 million in the 5 years. We have the maintenance of the maintenance yard asphalt in 29 in fiscal 30. We have the ongoing water conservation of city facilities of $100,000 a year. And again, the ongoing fire systems replacement program too for all our buildings for fire systems. Holiday decorations will go out till fiscal year 29, being funded from the redevelopment district, and this will help support businesses downtown. And then the recreation center HVAC conversion will have design next year in 27, and then the actual construction in fiscal year 28. And then the citywide HVAC replacement upgrades are just continuous until we're compliant with the new regulations. So looking at our parks for our 5-year plan, we have the Broadbent Court improvements in 28 that Julie mentioned earlier. We have the pump track, which will be a 2-year plan with the $20,000 in the first year for design and $90,000 the next year for construction. And then we have the ongoing park improvements of $200,000 and the park irrigation ongoing project. The swimming pool recreation project will have $20 million in fiscal year '27 and $11.9 million in fiscal year '28. And that project will have $18.9 million funded from the sale of Track 350, and the rest of the funding will come from the pool fund. There's also currently $5.2 million in that pool project that is current here in fiscal year '26. So the Boulder Creek Golf Course will have a pump station at Boulder Creek for $1 million in fiscal year '28. Also, the ongoing Boulder Creek course improvements of $100,000. And those will be paid for through the Acquisitions and Improvement Fund.
Can I just ask one question? It was on the other sheet too for the one-year plan, 5610-D. I don't know what that is.
It's a piece of golf equipment.
Okay.
It's a,
Oh, a lawnmower. Oh, so a 5610 is a lawnmower. No wonder I didn't know what it was.
A big one.
Nope, thank you. And then also in the digital, or also in the back of your packet, there's a CIP book, and there's a sheet discussing each one of these projects with a little more explanation of what they are. Thank you. So now we're at IT. So IT will have projects from 29 to 31, and this will be a network refresh for $60,000 each year, and it will come from the Acquisitions and Improvement Fund. The airport has the continuation of the construction of Taxiway D up until fiscal year '29. And then in fiscal year '29 also will be the reconstruction of Runway 927. And all of these projects will be funded the 90-10. 90% coming from the FAA and 10% coming from the airport, which is comes from service fees from the airport. The electric fund, airport.
I'm just curious where the tower is.
It's because it's funded in there's no additional funding coming. So it's not listed in the future projects. It's already funded. But that's the reason it's not listed in the 5-year plan, is because we're not showing current projects.
Okay, so it's just an ongoing, whenever it happens.
Well,
I may need Michael to, you want to help me with this a little bit? So I know that the airport staff was meeting with a group. They had a preliminary meeting. The RFP is out, and so it was a meeting to answer any questions that the potential bidders might have. So it's moving along. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Yes, the RFP is out, and the plan is over the next 2 years to construct the tower.
So based on that, I'm not sure if anybody wants to stay at the podium for this question or just kind of spitball it, but based on that, do we know the funding split already for because the RFP, is that actual construction of the tower, or is it the entire infrastructure for the tower, including the tower? And how much of that is the airport responsible for? How much is the FAA funding?
So for the CMAR, that is what the RFP is for. And the contemplation is it be 10% the city and 90% FAA. However, the airport has applied for a grant to try to cover the 10% portion of our costs. I think the latest I heard is that we'll at least get 5% of that. So that means 5% would be the responsibility of the city.
So then at that time, airport staff will need to kind of re-look at where we're at with our proposed funding and then allocate the funds.
Correct.
Is that a fair statement? So right now, it's not actually known.
No, we know
the
what
full
the
amount.
costs are. We'll have the final cost once the CMR is completed. We have the estimate.
Doesn't seem like there's a placeholder in here, though, as Councilmember Jorgensen noted.
Well, and that's because it's already been funded. That's why it's not in the CIP.
Okay, so it's sitting in the account that's earmarked. Thank you. Well, maybe we should have that stated so that everybody hears that,
Yeah,
yeah.
so if you, the city manager report, every month that goes out, the last few pages is the current status of the CIP projects, and it's listed, the tower is listed there. So 90% of it is definitely FAA, so a big chunk of this is grant funding, and it's not sitting in the airport fund, but the airport does have a fund balance currently for their match.
Perfect.
Sorry, just for a point of clarification then, so after the project is finished, then do we apply for the 90%?
We-
Or how does that work?
As it goes, it's actually, the FAA is the quickest grant to get back. For whatever reason, it's usually within days. So it's as the project goes along, we'll be requesting them, the
The amount, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
good questions. Okay. So looking at the electric fund, we'll be refurbishing, well, back all the way out in 2031, we have a couple of very large, expensive vehicles. And the reason they're out in 2031 is because we know we have to replace them, but depending on what happens in the next 5 years, we don't know if it'll be in 2031 or further out.
Does the electric fund have their own version of the VERF? I mean, do they just kind of allocate their various things under their headings as needed, or is it just?
Yeah, and it's also part of the rate study is making sure that they have enough funding to support their capital needs. So,
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. I think it's really important that we recognize, because we're our own utility, we cover everything to maintain, to build, to operate the utility, not just pay somebody else to bring it to us. And involves trucks and lifts and pieces and parts. Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
lots and lots of equipment. Okay, and then also we're going to refurbish transmission switches in fiscal year '28. So be a 2-year project, each year for $1 million. The continuation of the sub 3 rebuild. And then also our electric distribution upgrades, this will be an ongoing project, as well as the meter upgrades, at least to 2030. And then, depending on the rate study and timing of other projects, possibly the 4 kV substation removals in 2031, and the substation 4 rebuild starting in 2029. And then this is 100% dependent on the rate study.
And that's what I was going to address. So when staff meets with the contractor who's going to be doing the rate study, we're going to present the desired or needed projects wherever they fall, right? And what we anticipate we're going to need for ongoing operation and maintenance, and then ask them to include that. And do they condition, well, if you want this substation done, then this is what the rate will be. And if you want to put it out for another year, then the rate will be
Absolutely.
a different, yeah. So they're going to give us
Lots
the
of scenarios.
options to choose the rate based on what we feel are the priorities.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Along that same line, when we're looking forward, what are the sources of the money that we're looking at? We have property tax, we have grants, and so when you say we're looking at 5 years, what's the difference 5 years from now with the money flow coming in now?
I mean, many things could change. I mean, we're always trying to diversify our revenue, and, I mean, this is utilities, so really besides rates, it's not going to be a lot of changing unless we can qualify for grants. But for general fund acquisitions and improvement projects, I mean, we're always looking, of course, for grants, and then just different leases, different ways to take in revenue. We have the C-tax, we have property tax.
And that's my question is, when you project that out 5 years, my bottom line question, are we okay?
We are okay for all the governmental funded projects. We have internally vetted all of them. The utilities one, we're going to wait and see in the rate study to see if we need to push them out. But everything else in this CIP plan does have a revenue source. It does have a funding source available for it.
Okay, so if we were thinking, for instance, on a rate study, we really can't think about using property tax any more than we have, because there is a cap and we just won't be able to use that. So we are looking at using other sources instead of our quote property tax, which means that people aren't going to have to worry about this discussion, meaning, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to pay more in property tax.
Definitely not for any of the utilities projects, no. And everything that's presented today, it doesn't have an increase in property taxes. It has our current revenues.
Thank you.
I have one quick question. Since you brought up property tax, I noticed that my property tax is going down. So how does that affect the city when we're trying to budget for this? Does it go down on your side, or do you, I mean, it has to go down on your side if I'm paying less.
It is individual to individual, so it's very hard to answer that question. And just because it's going down doesn't mean the part that's coming to the city is going down.
Okay. So, so do you pad in there for that? Or do you?
For our property taxes,
For not just property taxes, but such as property taxes?
we do. We are conservative. We don't spend every single penny because we know things do come up.
Okay, thank you.
So when you say that you're going to look at these projects 28 through 31 based on the rate study that comes in, it's all utility projects?
That's only utilities projects,
Yeah,
yes. They're
okay.
connected to the rate
So
study.
not just electric, it will be everything evaluated from these 3 pages or
Yes.
whatever? Okay, thank you.
Good question. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. So the water fund also has a Vector truck replacement of $700,000 in 2031. And again, we're not sure when that's going to happen. We know eventually we'll have to replace it. Also, large meter backflow replacements in fiscal year 27 and 28, $500,000. That Adams potable main extension. And then a new airport potable main in 2028. And then potential raw to potable conversion in 2030. And Black Mountain to twin potable water supply, again, possibly in 2030, depending on the rate study. And then we have a service truck replacement and copper service replacement, which is our ongoing water project, just to keep our infrastructure.
Do any of these capital improvement projects in this or the next slide address, and I know I'll get the look for this, but the smell going down Buchanan and/or sometimes in other parts, is there anything specific on this list that we can tell people to look forward to?
Waste.
Okay, so it's yet to come, the excitement of that being changed in our city. Perfect.
Okay. Talking about wastewater. Sanitary sewer. So the Hemingway collection upgrades in 29 and 30. Also lift station 1 and 2 upgrades starting in fiscal year 30. And then our sanitary sewer upgrades is our ongoing project to address issues in our.
See, that would be why we didn't know, is because we don't have anything except sanitary sewer
I
upgrade.
think that page is missing.
Or
from
that
our-
page is missing
Sorry,
somehow.
there is an updated PowerPoint printed out.
This is
Yeah,
the
that's the one we
printout.
don't have.
We don't have the page. Yeah, I have that one, but
We skipped from water, which finishes with copper service replacement, to sanitary sewer upgrade. And there's no other details on that. So
Okay.
some of that's, sounds like some of that's missing on our page.
Why?
that's probably why my question was there.
Yes, yes. My apologies. I will get you the correct slide.
I'm holding Gary responsible.
But it is also in ClearGov or not ClearGov, the larger 150-page book. It's,
On the electronic one, but just not in this one.
sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay. So that was all of our enterprise fund projects. So projects we're currently researching is water conservation, always. Expansion of our cemetery, because we'll run out of lots here in the next 5 or 6 years. And then we're always evaluating the best use of the city space, so such as storage, a dedicated safety space, and also we're going into our ADA transition plan. And as we discussed earlier, we're always trying to connect with our residents. We have implemented a capital improvement resident suggestion site. And we're constantly gathering information from the site. The residents can email any time of the year, not just during CIP, and we forward those requests on to the appropriate director. As of November 20th, we've received 245 suggestions, and 42% of them have actually been addressed by all the directors in different projects around the city. And if anyone ever wants to submit an idea, it's at bcnv.org/CIP ideas.
The expansion of the cemetery is a municipal cemetery, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you for having me clarify that. It is a municipal, it's the city-owned cemetery. Okay, this slide is the timeline for our CIP for fiscal year '27. This is the first time it's being presented to council here on December 16th. On October 1st, it was presented at the Utility Advisory Committee and also to the residents. And as I said, the staff has been working on this since August. Depending on feedback today, we'll regroup and we'll come back on January 13th for hopefully a tentative approval of the capital improvement plan. And then final approval is always with the budget in May. And just so, yep.
Sorry, are roads not considered capital improvement? Because I don't see any like
The
road work
majority,
in the next 5 years in our community.
that's all that RTC funding, that's all roads. That's all the
Okay,
funding
but
is
not
for.
specifically called out for streets in the city.
Oh, that's what they're for. They're Boulder City streets.
Streets,
So it's
okay.
different. They'll come to council as a contract. but-
All RTC, so, okay. Just making sure when I'm asked that that's being covered.
Yes. And then, so for additional detail for all these projects are available in our digital CIP book, which is on our website. If you go to bcnv.org/CIP 2027. And then if anyone ever has a CIP question, they can always email cip@bcnv.org. Happy to answer any capital improvement funding questions you may have.
So, Mayor, if I might? On the calendar, on the 6th of January, the finance team and city manager are scheduled to meet to revise the CIP if needed, based on feedback today.
Yes.
So are we done with all the presentations?
Yes.
And now it's
We
time
would
for
love
feedback
the
today?
feedback. Yes.
Okay. And are you going to manage that, or is our city manager going to manage that? From how we going to participate in that feedback right now?
Per usual, Angela will answer all the hard questions, and I'll provide commentary.
Well, this isn't a question so much as it is a statement of consideration. We have the kind of, in the way I view it, tucked away to 2030, and it's on the water page of 5-year proposed projects for my fellow council members, very, very towards the end, within the last 5 or 6, 8 pages of the presentation. And it's raw to potable conversion. And Mr. City Manager, would you expound on what that is and why it's a consideration, and how you became to put it to the 2030 calendar year?
Yes, our utility staff and our former utilities director, and then going on to current staff, the previous director has had a preliminary conversation with SNWA and the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection, so NDEP, regarding the conversion of an existing raw water line, which is currently used. The raw water that comes into the city comes from the Henderson side of the River Mountains water treatment facility, and that raw water is used for our parks, cemetery, and the golf courses. And the rate for that water is a little bit cheaper. So, but on the other side, coming from the Alfred Merritt Smith water treatment facility, is our one potable water line that provides culinary water to city residents and businesses. And that is our one straw into the lake. It's served us well for many years. It is I think most would see that as a little bit of a risk at only having one water line serving the city. So the proposal was made that we convert the raw water line into a potable water line so that we have a little bit of redundancy. We have two different ways of getting potable water to the city. If our original water line ever went down, we would have a second way of doing that. And so in a way, we're fortunate to have this raw water line that can be converted cheaper than building an entirely new line. But in order to do that, there's some testing, sanitation that would need to be done on that raw water line to convert it over to potable water. So we've initiated those conversations. I've included this on our upcoming conversation around the strategic plan because indeed this is a longer term strategy for the city. Now, you can see the obvious benefits to the city from having a second potable water line and the redundancy there. I'm told that there is a benefit to the overall water system itself in that the way that the water is managed coming in and out of the lake, and either it goes through our water right now comes only from Alfred Merritt Smith, but they also have a way of pulling the water out and having it go over the hill to the other regional water treatment plant, which is River Mountains. And the way that the water is managed there, that if there is a second line, that it will allow them to better manage more efficiency in the way that they manage the water. So there's benefits to the city and benefits to the overall system. The one downside, of course, is that if that raw water line is converted to potable water, the price for the water would go up that we're using on our, for irrigation right now. I said the other day, well, that would give us yet another incentive to further reduce our water usage, but that's further down the road that we would need to address that. Right now, we're focused on providing that second water line for redundancy in our system.
I was hoping somebody might have questions about that. Having considered that, as a community, everything but water has redundancy. And that line is vulnerable. We have had some near misses in the years past that haven't put it to where it's shut down, but could have put it to where it was shut down. In the summer months, we have 8 hours of water stored in our tanks. So if something were to happen with either the supply coming up the hill through the piping or the electricity, we would have in the summer months 8 hours of water before we're out of potable drinking water. That's a big risk. It's served us well for the years it's been in service, but there are risks to it, and we know we've had power failures in very recent years where we've seen it's taken many hours to get replacement or get the power back up. And we know when we order replacement equipment for the substations, it can take months and months. And when construction occurs along the lines and the roads where the lines run, there's a potential risk of heavy equipment damaging those lines, which happened not long ago. Fortunately, it didn't break the line, but it could have, and it came close to doing so. To me, this is not just a kind of a good idea, but it's critical infrastructure. One of our strategic plan points is to have dependable and reliable infrastructure of all of our services. And drinking water is the probably single most important part of all of our infrastructure over electricity and the landfill, maybe close to wastewater, because once we use it, we got to get it out of there. But anyway, I would love to see further discussion on this and maybe some further details for consideration to know if 2030 is the right timing or if sooner or not at all. If our council believes, no, we're good and we don't need redundancy in our potable water and we'll just leave the raw water line where it is because we like the slightly lower rate for our parks and golf courses. I think it's a very serious topic that deserves a lot of consideration and some further maybe feedback from subject matter experts.
I think it gets more interesting, I'll call it, when you consider that we have batteries that need water when they burn. And so how do we take that into account as well? So you have water pressure that has to be generated. So I think you bring up a very valid point, and I think it's wise that we have that at some point on a discussion that's agendized, and we look at that. So I think now we're talking about things, and this is the appropriate time to bring it up. So I think we need to put that on our agenda.
I have one silly question. I agree we should put that on the agenda and have a discussion on that. I think that would be important. But I just had a question, and this is a silly question for my own information. In September, I would like to see portable fencing for the Escalante Dog Park. Would that go on in September if I'm reading this? Is that when you would request something like that to go on? I don't know that you would necessarily
I
get
see.
it, but is that when we'd make that request? Then I guess I would probably have to go through Gary to make that request for capital expenditure. When do you put those on? In September?
Yeah, so ideas like that, I mean, this is a great time to give feedback for that, so we could add it to future projects if that's a direction the council would like to go in. So, I mean, this is a good time for feedback, but it couldn't happen.
Okay.
I mean,
that's
I
just-
guess it would just need a lot, it's hard to vet that fast.
It's just that they're putting on a dog park at Escalante Park, and there is no fencing for it. So, but you could put wrought iron portable fencing around it so that you could lift it off when we're having special functions. So is that something, I'm not sure I'm understanding, is that I would get with Gary and do that, or I just tell you?
I
go
can
ahead.
answer that.
Oh.
So, yeah, if you don't mind. That would be a separate item that would need to come back to the council for separate conversation, as it's not included in the current direction that we have from the council regarding dog recreation at
My
Escalante Park.
question is, when do you do that? In September, or do you do it before?
Yeah, as part of the budget process, it could be September, but I guess it could come up at any time. I don't know if you.
I think here we're seeking direction from council as a body, so it's certainly something you can bring up for your fellow members to talk about on whether the full body would like to see that looked at and brought back in the CIP. This, I think, is an appropriate time to talk about CIP projects, so if the full body wants to give direction for that, that would be appropriate to
So I
then
would ask for
include.
that in September.
I think the full body can discuss it at this moment.
Right now.
Oh, right this minute?
We just won't have cost estimates, but as a general policy on whether there should be a capital improvement project for fencing around North Escalante, the previous direction was to have it unfenced. So if the council wants to discuss that now, they can.
Okay, so the reason they wanted it unfenced was because we have so many functions over there. And you can have portable wrought iron fencing where you just cluck it in a pole, and when you want to have a function go on, then you would pull that out. But I think if we're going to have a dog park in this part of the city, we really should have it fenced. And I'm sorry, we have a bug flying around us here. That's my suggestion. Now, if anybody wants to add to that.
So are we at a point where this has been agendized enough?
Yeah, yes, there's already an approved, Escalante Park is already chosen as a dog park. This, fencing would be a CIP project, I believe. So if the council wants this isn't the only time the CIP is going to be brought to you. So if the whole council wants more information on Councilwoman Booth's request for portable iron fencing, we could bring you back quotes, and then you could decide whether it's something you wanted to add to the 5-year plan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as far as both of the things that have been talked about for me. I think as far as the water goes, I'd like to see that agendized, and I'd like to see it come back and talk about cost differences for potable versus raw for what we're using right now. And then the benefits of moving it up and what projects would be moved or maneuvered, right, somewhere else for that. And then as far as the fence, I'd first off like information to see if we're having any problems in that area that need a fence, because, you know, that would seem to me the reason we would want a fence, most likely, is if it was problematic that there were dogs in that area right downtown, and then the cost involved in that.
Yeah, I think it's mostly for like older people like myself that have little dogs that want to run and have some kind of fencing where you can keep them enclosed, thus the dog park. It's nice to have open spaces also, so I think we've really been very accommodating to the city, but yeah, I would like that. And on both sides of it, I'd like to hear about the water more so, absolutely, and then the cost of putting dog fencing around, because it may be something that doesn't fit into the budget this year or the next year, maybe on down the line, but.
I have a question for you, Koki. When you talk about a fence, permanent fence around Escalante?
No, it would be a wrought iron fence that you have little holes, and you stick your wrought iron fence in those holes. And then if you want to do a function over there, like having a craft show or a car show or something like that, you pull the wrought iron fencing up and haul it off so that you can have your function for the car show or whatever you want to do in Escalante Park. But the rest of the year, it would be a dog park.
Cosmetically wise, how would that look, a fence around?
Well, we have wrought
Escalante
iron
Park.
fence downtown.
Mayor, if
I think realistically, this is a discussion
Yes,
that I would
I
feel much
agree.
more comfortable if we did this on an agenda. I don't feel compelled to make a decision now. I think we're taking the
Time
look
away
at
from
the
this.
CIP, and I think it's appropriate to say, yeah, this is one of the things that I would like to see, but that doesn't mean we're going to do anything. And I think that do anything needs to come on an agenda where we actually discuss it.
Mayor, if I may, we do have another potential opportunity to bring that back to the council for discussion. We are, you had given us direction to come back sometime within the next 6 months to talk about the feedback that we get from the community group on Pratt Field, for example, and I think that would pair nicely with that. It's just a follow-up discussion on things related to dog parks in the city, and we can include that and have some cost estimates and even maybe some preliminary plans and a few more details about it so that you could make an informed decision.
Thank you. I appreciate the vision
Yeah.
that you're
No,
having.
that's perfect for me.
And
That's
willing to
perfect.
share, and I think if we put that on an agenda and have that discussion, how it fits in the whole citywide thing, I think that'd be
Mayor,
appropriate.
I have a question
Go ahead.
for us or for panel. On the, I'm sorry, who am I talking to? On the SNWA wastewater reuse, there was 2 projects that were out there. I don't know if that's appropriate now, but is that included in what Steve was talking about earlier? To look at those as well? Or where do they sit? Is that something that's coming back to the council?
Are you talking about the feasibility study for our
That's correct.
wastewater?
Yes.
Well, it's not part of the raw to potable discussion. However, it could be part of the bigger discussion, but we don't even have that report. And we don't know when we're going to get that final
that's just-
report. So it's hard to tie it to the conversation because we just don't know when that's coming back around, the report back from the Water Authority. So it's kind of hard to tie it. If there's any costs associated, how would it fit into the rate study? Without the report, we can't really even have the discussion, so.
Is there a timing for that rate discussion, or is it just
I think
been tabled
that's
for
from
another
staff
time?
to answer, yeah.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, on that particular, I have that listed in our next item too regarding the strategic plan. Again, it's one of those larger strategic things. items that we need, issues that we need, certainly need to discuss. The potable is the water coming in, and the effluent is the water going out. They're both equally important. We are waiting on SNWA to respond to the comments that we provided to them a number of months ago on the feasibility study. And as soon as we have that, then we would like to share that information with the council.
Okay, thank you.
It is on our radar screen.
Go ahead.
I'm looking under Parks and Rec, and I'm looking under swimming pool recreational project construction. I see it fiscal year 27, 28. Is that, and are those the 2 years that we feel like we need to build the pool?
I hope so.
I know,
Yeah.
I just didn't see any
Yeah.
funding going over into
Yeah.
29, so are we saying that those are the 2 years that we will be using that funding for that project, because we estimate it could be finished, as we all know, and if anyone ever has built anything or had something done in their life, that is a soft date and target, but a hopeful one.
Yeah, my pat answer on that throughout the day today will be that at present, we are on target to meet that 2028 deadline to have the pool completed. Unless there are any unforeseen circumstances, but currently we're on course.
Nice. All right. Is that all? So was that, the feedback was to bring back in 6 months the potential for Escalante Park, and then also to bring back the potable?
Well, I think, I don't know how staff feels about that, but but as far as the potable water line, that was not a 6-month question. That was as soon as we can get the information question, right? If my fellow council members agree with that.
I mean, realistically, we have a fencing issue, and it's more global than just that one area. The agenda for the water redundancy, the fencing, North Escalante particularly, the SNWA wastewater study, and the pool. And was there anything else that we need to agendize from this discussion?
Mayor, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be agendized, but I did hear, I think it was a request, or I just more information, more detail about the upcoming street projects that will be funded by with the RTC funding, and we can flesh out some of that and provide that. It would probably be nice, if it's not already there, to provide that on our website, that the residents are also aware of those upcoming projects.
And I don't know if we're going to have this on the agenda today, but I think the rationale that was asked, do we have enough money, I think is a rational thing to do, to say, this is our money stream and this is how we're going to get there. We've said what we want. Do we have enough money? And recognizing that there are limitations on some aspects of it, but that I think that is a statement that we have to make sure that is married to the things that we have projected.
Mm-hmm. And then this is a 5-year plan, but we're really just focused on next year for fiscal year 27, and fiscal year 27 does have funding available for all projects.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Okay. We are moving to number 3, the strategic plan.
Okay. Mayor and council, it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon to provide an overview of our strategic plan. I have really two different this segment of the agenda will have two different parts to it. First, I'll give you just a regular update, quarterly update of recent projects. It's certainly not an exhaustive, comprehensive list of everything the city's been working on, but I wanted to highlight some of the great work that the staff has been doing across all the departments, and most everything that we do, if not everything we do, fits somewhere under this strategic plan. Given that the strategic plan was adopted a year ago, I thought we would take this opportunity, and the reason we're having a special meeting, really a workshop today, is on the strategic plan. I'll shift after the PowerPoint presentation. You have a handout, larger, so easier to read, just discussion notes, and both of these are organized around the 7 goals and then the strategies, and we'll walk through that. The second part of the discussion, we'll delve into they're organized by short-term, medium-term, long-term, and then just ongoing strategies. Short-term meaning 1 to 2 years, medium-term 2 to 3 years, and then longer-term 4 to 5 years. This is our 5-year strategic plan, and I'll talk a little bit about what's been accomplished, and then looking for discussion and direction from the council on what are the priorities. We've heard some of them already cropped up in our discussion around the CIP, and then we'll go from there. I'll just point out, I think it's obvious that there's a lot of overlap here. We have a CIP that we've just presented to you. We appreciate the support and the work that the executive team, and particularly our finance department, definitely want to thank Angela for the work and Cynthia for the work that they've, and who else is here? Carol, thank you. I was going to say Cindy, but Carol, for the work that they've done on the CIP. And so that gets us through the first year, the 27, as she said, that's really our focus. Now, we do have a 5-year plan because as we get further out, the numbers get, I won't call them fuzzy, but we have to wait to see what will the taxes be and what will the resources be available in those outer years. But we do want to have a little bit of an idea of where we're going in those outer years. So that's the purpose of the CIP, and it aligns nicely again with this strategic plan. But I just mentioned that you'll see a lot of overlap here. There are projects that we would like to begin, and so as depending on the response that we get from the council today, we may initiate new projects that we would then build into the CIP for next year, and we would recalibrate next year's CIP, again, using the strategic plan as our guide and how we put that together. So with that in mind, let me jump into just our review of, as I mentioned, this third quarter of this year. If we go to the next slide, the first 2 slides are just a reminder to everyone of the structure or the framework of our strategic plan. We have 7 goals. Each of the goals have a number, usually 4 to 6, 7 strategies that are under those. So here we see the first 3, recreation and tourism, our financial stewardship, and again, growth control ordinance. Then the next slide, we have historic preservation, infrastructure, public health, and then public safety. And again, all of those themes, the larger themes, the larger goals, are reflected in the conversation we just had around the CIP for the coming year. This gives you a little bit more detail about the structure of the plan itself, the goals, strategies. Again, there are a number of different terms for the strategies, either 1 to 2, 2 to 3, or 4 to 5 years. And then we have this other category, just ongoing strategies. These are things like budgeting and things that are very important, but that we're doing on an ongoing basis, and so they don't really lend themselves to a finite time frame. And then each of those strategies has a number of action steps with them, and that gives us a little more detail that the council gave on here's some things that we're thinking about. Now, it's a strategic plan, so we don't really change the goals or the strategies, but as we look at that, today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the actions. So what are the actions that we're taking? A lot of those are built into the plan itself, and we will build upon those. But again, those are kind of the projects, the programs, the initiatives that we're taking to implement this plan. If we could go to the next slide. I wanted to give you, in as much as it's an annual review of the strategic, kind of a snapshot of where we are. And this is our best estimate, I'll call it. So short-term strategy, again, we're 1 to 2 years. We're 1 year into this plan, so getting about 60, by our estimation, about 63% of the short-term items that were initially identified have been accomplished in one way or another. We'll talk about that in a little bit as we dive into the strategies. 10% of the medium, and then long-term, some of those are going to take a little longer for us to achieve. And then the ongoing ones, of course, are just things that we're doing as a matter of course. Just a little snapshot. And then next. So jumping into this, I'll go by each of the goals. So the first one is around maintaining high-quality recreation and tourism offerings. I won't touch upon every strategy here, but just a couple of the highlights. Again, one of the other segments of our strategic plan, or the performance measures, or the metrics, as they call them, and one of those for strategy 2 is, that we have an increase, or we expand recreational opportunities with a focus on youth. So I just wanted to highlight that we had 587 people participating and in our fall recreation programs. There's a number of other details that are included in the materials in your staff report. I know in the summertime, the Parks and Rec Department offered additional a brighter variety of classes, and so there were more people involved. I know they provided some free swim lessons, so there are a number of different items under here, but I wanted to highlight how many people were participating in response to the metric for that particular strategy. And then, of course, with the adoption of our new bike safety regulations, we worked with CCSD to provide free helmets. And again, coordinating and collaboration with CCSD is one of the action steps that are included. So I've mentioned that here. With the development of a multi-purpose meeting space, this is the pavilion, a replacement for this is a long-term strategy. What we have done to get started on that, we have formed a working group to begin talking about what that might look like, what are the opportunities for funding that type of a facility, looking at other communities that have that type of a facility. So just the very initial steps of doing it. So we don't say that we've completed that in any way, but at least we've started on it. And then again,
Can I interrupt for a second, please?
Yes,
Before
please.
you go on, Mayor, are we going to have the interaction in this presentation like we did in the last one, or do we need to save everything up for the end?
I think it's appropriate if we have something that we
Okay.
can share it. Go
If I
ahead.
might then, thank you.
Right.
To strategy 3, we do have a time constraint on that though, right?
We do, yes.
So I think we need to make sure that we keep that in the CIP, well, because it's going to have or not just one funding source, right? Or do we believe it will be funded solely by the RDA?
I think it's too early to tell. The RDA will certainly provide a bulk of the funding, but it may or may not be all of it.
Okay.
If I were to venture a guess, I would say it won't be all of it.
So it probably then would be appropriate to add this as an item, at least a placeholder in our CIP for the next 5 years, because that RDA funding is going to expire within that, or right about that time frame, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to have to work on the, on the design process and perhaps a CMAR. I don't know, I imagine we're going to do that, and all the RFPs that are associated with that. So it feels like that one needs to be also added into the CIP, at least with a placeholder, and start to, manage what kind of funds might be anticipated to come from other funding sources.
Yeah, in that regard, it's not unlike a little bit the potable water conversion, because there's definitely an urgency to it, but it is a longer term proposition. So you're exactly right. So we can do that.
Thanks.
Yeah, we've talked about the pool a fair amount, but I did want to mention that the RFP for the CMAR is out circulating. The deadline is on Thursday of this week, so we're moving along. We were happy to be able to share some preliminary design scenarios or design options with the council. Once the CMAR is on board and they make some additional tweaks, we expect that we'll be able to share some of those design concepts with the community. And I again want to emphasize we are still on target to meet that 2028 opening deadline. Oh, and the other thing I think is significant there is that with the closure of the sale of Track 350, that first takedown and the funding for the pool project came in. So things are, we put these things into a strategic plan, and the pool is also identified as a long-term strategy, and yet here we see that significant progress is being made on that very significant project for the community. We could have the next slide, please. Again, just continuing under recreation, several things related to promoting Boulder City as a destination. We have, of course, our passport program that's currently ongoing. I use every opportunity I can to promote this. There's still a few weeks left for folks in the community who want to pick up a passport and get the stamps and visit our businesses. There's an opportunity to win $50 in gift cards that can then be used at our businesses. So this was put together in-house by staff to promote our local businesses in response to a request from them to help after a very long summer of construction on our main street. And I think it's working out very well. It's kind of a fun program. In addition to that, we've had a holiday advertising campaign. We use some of our RDA funds for that as well to promote not only our businesses in downtown Boulder City, but again, this overarching goal of promoting Boulder City as a destination for tourism as well as shopping and dining. One thing that I thought was really interesting is the collaboration with LDCVA on their wedding division. The Boulder Creek Golf Course is doing a great job. They had a lot of wedding planners come out and they gave them a tour and an open house of both the Boulder Creek clubhouse as well as the pavilion as a place for weddings. And that was very successful. And then, of course, our ongoing collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce. Councilmember Jorgensen earlier mentioned the Adventure Center. This isn't directly a a city project, but clearly it will be a great benefit to the community in meeting our goal of creating a destination for tourism here in Boulder City. I would add to that the state-funded $20 million plus railroad museum that's coming too, and that's both for our purposes of our strategic plan. That's both historic preservation as well as recreation and tourism offerings. So there are a number of different, very exciting, large projects, strategic projects that are coming up. If we could have the next slide, please. I'm going to move to the next goal of achieving prudent financial stewardship. A couple of examples of diversifying revenue streams. We have begun adding what we're referring to as a fire assessment fee to any of our new land leases in the El Dorado Valley for either battery storage or solar. It's unfortunate that we didn't have this before, but now any future land leases that we have will have this fee attached to them. And we can talk more about it if we need to. Grant opportunities, there have been several. We mentioned as part of the CIP that we are pursuing grants to help, federal grants to help us with some of the fire equipment. I am aware that the Muni Court, for example, got a grant to, if you go over there with the recent renovations, they put in a new scanning machine to make the facility safer. That's where you put your bags through the scanning machine. That was all, they have a new machine there, so it was all grant funded. I know the Nevada Rural Electric Association provided the city with a grant for some upgrades to our electrical facilities, and you know, the list goes on and on. There are a number of both smaller and larger grants. So definitely working well under this strategy as part of our achieving prudent financial stewardship.
Could I ask a question on just that section right there on the new fire assessment fee? Who sets that rate for a fee? How does that look? Or is that something that's an ongoing discussion? Because it just says new fire assessment fee, but what does that look like, the mechanics of it?
I might have our city attorney discuss that. We had it on the recent option extension that we did, and I don't recall exactly how that was calculated. I know it was per kilowatt. But
Yeah, the fire chief and finance department worked together on the methodology for calculation of the fee, but I'm not sure if this slide is referring to a fire assessment fee negotiated within our agreements or a new fire assessment fee we would be imposing as a taxing body, or is this just referring to our agreements?
the contracts, yeah, the
Okay.
agreements, yeah.
Yes, the fire chief and the finance department worked to come up with a methodology to determine an appropriate fee amount.
Okay, thank you. And on the grant opportunities, is SNPLMA one of those grants or a stream of grants that's considered in the grant opportunities?
Yeah, I think SNPLMA would not be considered a grant per se. It is funding that's available, but yeah, I don't know that it fits in cleanly in the category of a grant.
Grants. Where would you put that at?
I'd probably put
for
that as
down the road
other
discussion,
government funding, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I forgot, I did write down the details. So the grant from the rural, I thought this was interesting, unusual. So it's a grid resiliency grant from the Nevada Rural Electric Association, and it was $137,000 toward rebuilding Substation 3. It's one of the CIP projects. And then I'll just jump down really quick to continuing the support for nonprofits and volunteer groups. I've been very impressed, being new in Boulder City, at the tremendous support that the city gives to our community nonprofits. We work together so well. Most if not all of the large events that occur here are put on by the nonprofits, but they're certainly helped by the city or supported by the city, both with monetary grants as well as with in-kind support. The one I would highlight, the recently formed Southern Nevada Mounted Unit, which grew out of the former Boulder City Mounted Unit, where there was a lot of equipment, a horse trailer and some other things that we no longer needed, as it would not, we don't have our own, we were not hosting our own mounted unit, but they could use those, so we donated those items to that group. And that's just one of the many, Art in the Park, Worst Festival, also this fall, what was usually the Dillinger Block Party, the city provided some in-kind support as well as monetary support to that, because again, it's prudent financial support. It's bringing people in and generating things, but it's also creating a tourism hub, or creating tourism opportunities.
Can I
visitor
insert
opportunities
for
here.
just 1 second? I just have a question regarding grants. I see that so many of our people are out there applying for grants and getting grants. Do we ever have that amount yearly of how much? I mean, that's pretty significant, I would think. I know there's RTC and FAA and those kind of things, but just like you just mentioned, I'm just wondering if we have a yearly accounting of what fire got, or you know what I mean, and we put it all together and we can see truly how hard individuals and each group is working to find grants in their specific areas to help fund and save the taxpayers and the citizens.
It's a great idea. Our finance department manages the grants. They've left. I'm looking for them. I know that the information. Oh, Paul's here. Sorry. Paul is actually the grant manager. I don't know if you want to say something about that, Paul.
I think he does.
Somebody, if you want to.
You're right. That's okay. I'm Paul Sikora. I'm the acting finance director right now and the grant manager for the city as well. You are correct. We are managing 23 different grants right now. Most people are aware of just the 2 or 3 major ones. The exact cumulative value of all of those changes from month to month, but in general right now we're probably managing about $12 to $15 million in grants, and we do not report that number to anybody, but it's certainly something I can put together at a moment's notice.
Please do.
This is the moment.
Not right now, but
With my computer in front of me.
But maybe, for a yearly at the end, maybe for a yearly, just a FYI at the end and with the financial report or something. I think that's something that would be nice to know.
Be a good thing for the state of the city.
Yes.
Yes.
We're going to have that in our annual report in January that we give to you in a few weeks.
Perfect.
Add something here. I think it would be nice to know to how much the city gives out to our local businesses in grants, because they go out in $250, $2,000, $3,000, but we give a lot to our small businesses to help them bring people into our community, and I think it would be nice to know what the total was of the grants that we also issue out to people as well.
Yeah.
You can do that?
Yeah, we could put that in the presentation as well. That's easily gatherable data.
And Paul, while you're there, can you explain SNPLMA and why that's not considered a grant?
Well, that's the SNPLMA, and I'm trying to get the acronym right. Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. Correct. Yes, thank you. That is managed through Clark County. So we have applied for a couple SNPLMA projects over the last couple years, but they did not make the cut at Clark County. Clark County gathers everyone's up, they rack and stack them, and if they like them, they'll take them and go forward with them. So we've had a couple projects that we tried to advance through that program, and we just haven't had any success yet.
So is that something we need like a lobbyist for, to speak on our behalf?
In my opinion, we don't. We just need a good project.
Like a fire department or a pool?
No, it's like something more along a BLM corridor, a park,
Bootleg
Bootleg Canyon project, those kind of things, versus new construction or anything that's happening downtown proper. They're looking for projects that are around the BLM corridors and all that other stuff.
So strictly recreational?
Maybe, yes. Yeah.
There's a couple of different, there are a couple of different categories under SNFLMA, and the funds that we apply for through the county are all under the Parks, Trails, and Natural Areas category for SNFLMA. Other parts of that program go to things like Lake Tahoe or to the schools and to other things, but there is for local government, the main participation is through that Parks, Trails, and Natural Areas category.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next time we meet, we'll have more conversation. SNFLMA is one of my favorite topics, but
Mine's too.
yeah. And
There's
some of the
money to
great,
be had there.
yeah,
Lots of
and
money.
I don't want to dwell on it too much, but
Right.
some of the ways that we have benefited, and really great projects, the River Mountain Loop Trail, for example, was largely funded by SNFLMA, and then a lot of parks projects. And other things throughout the valley, but not so much here. We do have the one park project with the large statues up by the animal statues, a big rabbit and a big tortoise up near Bootleg Canyon. That park was funded, my understanding was a SNFLMA funded project.
Would the golf course or anything that has to do with the golf course, like a pavilion, be something that we could look at?
Not necessarily, it's
Not-
too
because that's not
localized.
Too local, okay.
It's more of it's really for public benefit, meaning truly for everyone in the public rather than more of a private enterprise.
No, I was thinking of the municipal, actually, but yeah, thank you.
Oh, we'll talk more. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next slide then. So we'll hurry along a little bit because the larger part of the conversation really should be our discussion. A little bit about the growth control ordinance. We created, one of the items in there was around customer service, and I wanted to show you the example. We've created the City of Boulder City Customer Service Best Practices Guide. We've shared this with all of the employees. We've also will require them on an annual basis, not necessarily, we'll encourage them to use this. This is more localized, but we'll have annual customer services training with staff. This is definitely one of those ongoing goals or one of those ongoing strategies. It's definitely not a one and done, something that we'll want to do as we go along the way. It's under strategy 4, it seems a little odd to have, the hiring of a building official, how does that help with business licensing? Well, we think about our businesses that come in to get both permits and their business license. Having a full-time building official who is here, who gets to know the people, who is, we hope, and who is focused on customer service, we hope will help with that aspect of city services, particularly the plan review process. And when even not just new businesses, but our existing businesses, when they come in to remodel or expand, as we hope they will, that they will find improved services in that aspect of the city. So the next slide, please. We'll look at a little bit at infrastructure. We've talked a lot about that already in terms of the CIP. This part of the presentation is a little bit retrospective. So in the past several months, we have received over almost $2 million from the Clark County Flood Control District for flood maintenance. This has included the Hemingway Channel, the East Airport Channel. RTC has also given funding for a number of projects. One that sometimes gets overlooked is the landscape maintenance on Boulder City Parkway and the new 6 Companies Drive. The third bullet point down on that one, was it last week, we had the presentation from representatives, in this case from Snyder Electric. They had come in and partnered with the city, looked over our facilities, and gave us what I call a preliminary assessment of a potential project for energy conservation and long-term savings. And this is another good example. We can talk about this in a moment, but as you look down, as I was looking at that list of CIP projects, many of them would fit into the overall strategy that they were presenting to us. So if the council were to give direction to move forward on that, we would start folding those, rather than having one-off projects, we would start folding them into more of a strategy under what they refer to as a performance contract. We can talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then this idea down below on the ADA transition plan. This is, I was not as familiar with what a transition plan is, but a formal document required by all public entities of a certain size detailing how they will identify and remove physical barriers to accessibility and ensure that programs, services, and facilities comply with the American with Disabilities Act over time. So it's exactly what the city is doing with all of these projects from Nevada Way, recently completed, and the improvements we made there, as well as the project that's about to get started out here in our own parking lot and making the access to this building more easy for those with disabilities. If we could go to the next slide, please. I should say this transition plan will give us an overall strategy for that. Continuing with infrastructure, we have a number of projects that we've talked about. It's to support infill and redevelopment, but you could almost say that anything that we do is to support infill within the city. The reconstruction of Nevada Way, for example, will hopefully attract new businesses or encourage those that are existing to expand. One that's interesting on here, the circuit upgrades, and I'm not as familiar with our electrical system, but the circuit upgrades were critical. One of them tied 3 circuits together, improving service flexibility, or system flexibility, as I was told. There was another one where the existing cable was overloaded, and so they installed they called a new trunk line, and that was better to serve, it gave it more capacity to serve the system demand that's there. I think you could add in something like this would be the 12 kV line that was installed earlier this year on Nevada Way is a great example of infrastructure projects to support new infill development. And then I also included here, we've already talked about Strategy 5, conducting capacity assessments for utilities. So that second potable water line that we've talked about is a good example of that. If we do the next slide, please, we have health and accessibility. We continue to meet regularly with the Accessibility Working Group. They come to the meetings, they're very well prepared, they have great ideas and great feedback. Over the past year, we've programmed over $100,000. Well, each year we program around $100,000 of the RTC money for RDA and pedestrian safety upgrades. Example of that here, the Buchanan and Elm intersection improvements, some of the pedestrian safety improvements that have been made, improvements at this building, et cetera. Oh, there was one, it's not shown here, but Strategy 4, it had to do with coordination among all the different groups. I'm like, well, why is that here under ADA? It was police, fire, and the code enforcement, but it had to do with moving the vehicles off the streets. And I just wanted to report to the council that for the additional RV parking that's been talked about for a while, that the appraisal has been completed, and we expect to circulate an RFP for that additional RV parking in January. So I'll report on that in my next quarterly report, but there is some improvement being made there. And then our last goal has to do with public safety. If we have the next slide, please. A couple of different strategies here. Facilities and equipment. We've recently completed remodeling projects at the police department, the fire department, and the municipal court. You drive by the buildings, you don't really notice the difference so much, but inside looks entirely different. The fire department, I know that our female firefighters will certainly appreciate the new restrooms and shower facilities that have been provided to them. We were at the court building earlier today, and they have a new jury room, and it's just much more functional. And over at the police department on the east side of the building, historic building, looks brand new. And the main part there is they have a new facility for our dispatch, which has been operating up with the Park Service dispatch, but they can move back over here, and they'll have a brand new room, and a couple of new meeting rooms over there.
Are they finished with the fire training center, the big area on the side of the fire station? Is that complete where the training tower is?
I'd like to say yes. Every time I go over there, I notice something new that has some new improvement that's been done. I know they had some additional paving that they were going to do and some additional training opportunities. So, but the main tower is, and they're using it very well. Yeah, I hear from the chief that they're happy to have it, and that's being very well. Right to the south of the fire station, there's a new building that went in. That is a storage building for the emergency operations materials. They're stuffed away all over town. We're going to bring them into one area and have a new building for those. One of the items on the CIP earlier today was HVAC for that building.
that,
Some of the materials that go in there need to have, the space needs to be conditioned, so we'll add that in. Last Tuesday, the council approved the new fire truck, so I'm going to include that under assessment of facilities and equipment. It was determined that a new fire truck was needed, and we appreciate the council's support for that. Under Strategy 4, it has to do with ensuring a high level of public safety services. The fire department in February will submit their annual compliance report to the Commission on Fire Accreditation. That's an annual report that they submit. The police department has completed an assessment of what they would need to do to be accredited, and they have now identified a process and costs and timeline for that. So that fulfills that particular strategy, and then we'll look at how we proceed with that. And then finally, if we have the next slide, just communicating and celebrating the low crime rate. We have, our usual things, social media posts. I particularly like the video that was made for the helmets, and we have another video that was made for dog leash. So those are kind of cute. Chief Shea provided his annual police department report with all the types and numbers of crime of that. So fulfilling that goal. And then the last slide, please, and then we'll shift gears. Unless you have any other comments or questions, we'll continue the discussion in a little more detail. Again, referring to the handout, but again, the 7 goals remain unchanged. They're just really focus areas for the council, but we'll focus in now on strategies and action steps, and then any priorities for the coming year, the years ahead. So, my thought on going through this, I can go down each one. We can look at the goals. I don't want to belabor it. There's a lot of material here. So I don't know if the council has any direction on that. If not, I'll just jump into it.
Well, while you're
yes.
belaboring that, we're going to take a break.
Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
So be back here in 8.5 to 12.5 minutes.
I'll regroup.
City Council special meeting will come back to order. Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate having the break because it allowed me to gather my thoughts and talk to staff and get some ideas. I'm going to try to present this in a more streamlined fashion. My inclination is to go through every letter on this page because it's all important. But let me just talk about, we've got 7 goals, and underneath each of those, there are some longer-term items that are very important, that council input on that would be very helpful. Some of these council has given us a little bit of input already, but I'll still go over theirs. And let me go through each one. I'll give you the overview, and then we can go back and talk through. So if you look at the first page, Goal 1, high-quality recreation and tourism offerings. If you go down to the bottom under long-term, 2 of the projects, important projects we've already talked about, the pool project and the pavilion. So we kind of have our more marching orders on those. I don't know that we need to talk more. The other items that are here, as you look on the column on the right side, things like the pump track and the advisory group for off-leash dog activities, pickleball, lights on the pickleball courts. These are things that are already underway, but they will be completed within the next year. So I included them on here. We've got turf conversion program and a couple of other things, but those also fall under one or more of the other goals. So under the first one, pool and pavilion. Number 2, this has to do with prudent financial stewardship.
So if you could tell us where we're supposed to be. So we're not on all the pretty colored ones.
So up at the top in the dark band, it will give you the goal, and
This one.
each page has a different. It has all of the information, has all of the strategies under each of those goals.
All right.
And then they're organized by short-term, medium-term, and long-term down the page. So I just covered the first page, Goal 1, with the long-term items, the pool and the pavilion. If you go to the next page, Goal 2, around financial stewardship, there are a lot of things we could talk about here. A couple of things I'll touch upon. In this year's operating budget process, I'd like to introduce the idea of having we'll call a community pulse survey. So literally taking the pulse of the community, what are the priorities of the community, and then it can be aligned with, it doesn't have to be integrated with the budget process, but it'd be run on a parallel track. That will give the council an idea of what the community feels like money should be spent on. We can do that over a number of years, and we would ask similar questions so that you would then establish a trend, whether it goes up or down. I would imagine that there's going to be very strong support for public safety. Well, we could have some specific questions about that, and would you support this, would you support that? Your parks and recreation, would you support that? And that community pulse survey could be patterned after the strategic plan as well. We could have a few questions. We don't have too many questions, people get tired, but would have questions around each of these goal areas and get down to what the community is feeling. So introduction of that, and then also related to financial stewardship, we've touched upon funding of public facilities. So one of the ways of doing that is a ballot measure, and we could put a ballot measure on for something like a fire station, similar to what we did for the community pool. Will the community support that? And we could go into a little bit more detail. So we have the fund. You heard our budget manager mentioned the fund is growing. We take $1 million, the voter approved fund, we take $1 million out every year and spread it around for CIP projects. But that fund is actually growing at about a little over $3 million, if I heard correctly, each year. So that money continues to grow. There's some money there for facilities. Now unfortunately, we can't use that money for operations and salaries and that sort of thing, but we can use it for facilities. So keeping that in mind, we could think about a ballot measure. And then another idea is some type of a, yes.
If I might. So those decisions were made via ordinance on how to allocate those funds.
Correct.
Ordinances can always be changed.
Correct.
I'm just making a statement.
Look at our, another
Now,
idea.
I have to clarify,
Oh.
so if the public has voted for something, then we have to keep it in the fence of what the public has voted for as opposed to
The allocation
changing
of that fund, of those monies, were decided by ordinance.
The money, I think maybe we're two different things. So, so like for some of the funds coming in are like the pool funds. I think there was a ballot, I wasn't here, but the ballot measure, 90% here, 10% there. I think the funds that you're talking about are the special revenue funds that come from the solar leases, and yes, those are set by ordinance. And
Exactly.
that was going to be one of my things. Yeah, you're right.
But the money that goes into the voter-approved account comes from solar leases. Is that not correct?
Yes.
And that was
You're right.
allocated by ordinance.
I would have to look into that. I don't know for sure, but our city attorney may know.
Yeah, the city charter sets forth how the revenues received from solar leases has to be distributed.
The charter? So that was done by a vote then?
Well, a portion of it. So there's a portion that's dedicated to the charter. I believe it's 20% goes to the CIP. I need to look at the exact language. And then the other 80% is proportioned as determined by city council. And we have apportioned the remainder to support the general fund.
Okay.
But I don't know that that was done by
intend for us to get into the
ordinance.
weeds
Yeah.
on this, so I didn't, I'm sorry, Mayor, if I started to drive us to the weeds, but my point was, we do have a degree of flexibility, maybe not entire flexibility on this, but if there are funds that we are allowed by ordinance to reallocate, my point just was, we could also have that discussion when we have the budget discussion.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where I was going with, where are the money and how can we use the money? Do we have enough? And what do we have to augment with that flexibility that you're talking about? So we have to do some things because the voters voted on it, but this money that comes after the interest from that fund that the voters did, that's another issue. That's the way I see it.
Yes, and I think I'm guilty also. I kind of went off, here's a direction we could go, but I think we're talking about the same thing. So it's actually strategy 2.3 at the bottom of this, continue the use of 5-year rolling financial plan for operational needs to ensure the city's ability to maintain facilities and infrastructure. So under that strategy, there are a number of different, I guess we could say that there are a number of different ways of achieving that. And so if that's something that you, as part of our discussion about the strategic plan that you would like us to look into, I would agree that that is an area where there's some work that can be done. If you go to the next page, the third goal about community character through the growth control ordinance, under this one, in the next year, we will be bringing forward to the funding in an RFP for the zoning ordinance update. And I can't think of anything that the city would do under this particular goal that would be more important than updating that ordinance. It would achieve a lot of different goals and a lot of good for the community. Under the next goal, number 4, of historic preservation, I'll just put a little plug in. In January, that we're doing a historic preservation workshop on January 20th. And this is just an example. It's an open house style workshop where people can come in and explore different stations, meeting subject matter experts and get your questions answered, historic property information, design guidelines, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a smaller thing. It's not necessarily a big thing like a swimming pool or a pavilion or that. But these are the types of activities under historic preservation. It's more of a person-to-person, individual-to-individual conversation and property by property. So that I just wanted to give you that as an example of what we're doing. I think this is an area where...
Has that went out to the public, or is that just for the residents of the historic district?
This should go out to the public.
Okay.
It is for the public.
Thank you.
And it will be January 20th, but we'll make sure that that's promoted
Thank you.
on our website. Yeah, and then here, again, we have the Railroad Museum that's coming as a type of historic preservation. So, and then ongoing work. I just use that as an example of some of the work that we can do in that particular area. Continuing on, then goal 5, keep coming back to my list. We had talked about, we had the gentleman in from, this is around sustainable infrastructure and reliable infrastructure. So we had the folks in from Schneider Electric. Now, they're just one of several companies. They happen to be the one that volunteered to come in and give us some look over, do a preliminary look at our city facilities and identify some opportunities. I think this is a great opportunity. It would involve issuing an RFP, and there may be a number of different companies that might be interested in working with us, but at least we know there's an opportunity there. I would add that several of the projects that you saw in the CIP, as I mentioned earlier, would fit nicely under the program that they have suggested to us, and they're just suggesting a more strategic approach, which also fits under the goal of sustainable financing, because the projects that they're suggesting to us would be, in a way, self-financing. The savings over time would help pay for the project, and they can tell us more about that. Then for goal number 6, this has to do with accessibility and ADA. And one of the great ideas that came out of our accessibility working group, the last time we met, we had the fire chief there, and they had a lot of questions for him around an emergency response plan for elderly and disabled. And I thought that was a really great idea. We could spend the next little while focusing in on that under this goal. There are a number of projects that the city is doing that we already talked about in this space around, making this building more accessible, the ADA transition plan, and a couple of different things. So there's work to be done there. And then last of all, our goal number 7, which has to do with maintaining high levels of public safety. At your last meeting, we had a conversation around a risk cost benefit analysis for the fire department. We got really good direction from the council on that. And it, based on your direction, it will be something that we will be working on in the next year, several months and up to a year on that. So I think as an overarching goal, that fits well under that goal. So those are my 7 sort of like big things to work on. There are a number of other smaller items that we are already working on and projects, and we can talk about some of those as you look through, but I'll give you that overview to kind of get the conversation going. Oh.
There's something that, sorry, there's something that I don't see on here that is become important to me, and that is, how do we maintain all of this? And I think there should be a goal that is, how do we bring income into our community should something fail? Let's say solar fails all of a sudden, which would be devastating to us. What are we doing to bring revenue into our city to pay for our health, fire and safety issues that we need to address? That's just something that I feel that we're missing on this. Other than that, I think we have a lot of great things, and again, the water on here.
Yeah, one of the items under goal 2, it's on page 2, it's under long-term, I think it gets to what you're talking about, diversify revenue streams for long-time financial sustainability.
Okay,
and so that is one of our current strategies, and we can
Boost that up a little.
boost that up a little bit, yeah.
Thank you.
If I might, I think that is one of the principal concerns for our entire community. I mean, that's a big chunk, roughly a third, give or take, depending on the year and the contracts that come due, of our general operating fund. And if that were to, if these, as they expire, these leases begin to not be renewed for whatever reason, or the appraisals change for whatever reason to a diminished amount, that's a big deal. And yet we have to balance that with the desire to maintain the character of the community through the controlled growth ordinance, the combination of the charter and the ordinances. So, but that really is, I think, something we have to look at very hard. And as the mayor has pointed out multiple times, even if there was the notion of trying to collect money through property taxes, you couldn't, because the cap. It would take decades for that to even have an impact, a tiny impact on the general fund. So we really need to focus on what makes sense, taking the entire strategic plan in view. And I appreciate that being made to continue to the forefront, because, and you know, if something were to, if the rug were to be pulled out from under that, we'd be in really difficult straits. Yeah. Thanks for the rant.
I think that goes back to water. I mean, you know, it really comes back to how do we get the things that we have now and enjoy now, how do we maintain it? Costs go up and our ability to charge isn't infinite. Okay, so we can have a discussion.
So, now they gave you the overarching thing, we can just walk through it one goal at a time, and we don't necessarily need to belabor it. But under the goal of recreation and tourism offerings, again, recreation, we have pool, pavilion, those are also, in a way, that's a type of diversification, because if we replace the pavilion with something that attracts people who have, you know, small conferences here, then that's bringing people into town. Destination for tourism, some of the things I mentioned, you know, where we would really like to bring skydiving back, and we're working on the landing pad, and we hope to issue the RFP for the landing pad, and that would open the gates for that. We have the zip line up on, and we've been searching for a vendor to come in for that. So there are opportunities that are bubbling around that. Yeah, can't even underestimate or overstate the impact of the Adventure Center and the Railroad Museum coming here. So I feel like under this goal, we have a number of very large and significant things that are underway. I don't know if there's anything else that comes to mind. Otherwise, we can look at some of the other goals. Just even small things like lights on the pickleball court are good for residents. But yeah. Anything on that one? Okay, let's go then to number 2. We were just talking about this under prudent financial stewardship. I hear you on diversifying the revenue streams, and I think also here, these are both down at the bottom under long-term, but looking at our long-term 5-year financial forecast, and then having a conversation with the council around some of the things that you've mentioned about possibly recalibrating how the solar revenues are distributed into the funds. Those are both very large things, and we could prioritize those.
I think that some priority has been given. I know we've put on the land management process, some new properties, right, to be able to find incoming revenue streams. We've looked into different potential uses for those areas that we could lease. And so I think some of that's happening. I think, though, when you look at these strategies, these ongoing strategies, it's critical that just because they're long-term goals, that we don't push off the idea of having to deal with them. I think the reason they're long-term goals is that they cross every year, every month, every day. These right here, you know, do as far as keeping us as we are now, and or promoting even a healthier future for us. So I do see where you guys have been working on this, and where we are moving forward to diversify revenue sources. We're not unaware of what we have now and what could happen in the future. And so as long as we keep this up, I feel like it's a good direction for us. But I really encourage you to keep your eyes out for what the next, not new thing, but at least new in that it would sustain for quite a while for us, as opposed to maybe, who knows if solar's going to be the continuation of something, or, you know, the extinction. So.
One other item that's sort of right in the middle, strategy 2.6, I find interesting. Develop a financial management plan for funding of infrastructure and historic preservation following the loss of RDA funds in 2029. So we have tapped into those funds along, you know, in our Main Street, and used them well to support individual businesses, you know, reimbursing them for all different kinds of projects. When that RDA expires in 2029, we should begin thinking now about what replaces that, if anything. So that's something we could zero in on as well. And I guess in a way that's a little bit related to diversification of revenue streams as well. Okay. Good on that one. We can go to number 3, then community character with the growth control ordinance. Again, the big item here, I think, is the zoning ordinance update. I think that there's a fair amount of work that could be done here in that community pulse survey where we ask questions of the community regarding, there's a number of the different strategies here related to housing, housing diversity, housing types. So we could ask questions around that and get some additional direction from the community on what they think is important. And that would also help us as we do the zoning ordinance update on the types of policies that and regulations that we build into that.
So
Mayor.
Ned, if I may, on developing of affordable housing, is that a mandate from the state or a federal mandate to have that, or is that just up to us to?
Yeah, it's not some states have that type of a mandate. We don't necessarily, but it was included in this strategic plan for a reason.
I think realistically, we're looking at the schools, for instance, how this intertwines with the schools. They're decreasing their enrollment. Fortunately, we have people who can come from someplace elsewhere and come to the schools. But the reality is that we are aging, and our property taxes are up because our buildings are more limited. And so the question that we have then is, do we want to do something that attracts younger families and children, and how do we, if we do something, how do we do that? And we've had different people look at or ask us questions about what that is. We had one proposal, and so there are people who are looking at, and so the thing that we have to figure out is if we want to do a change of some kind or a direction, still going where we're at, but do we want to make any changes? And I think that is a discussion to have. You know, what are we doing? We have a large land mass, but yet within the city, what I'll call the city proper, what do we do with those lands that we have available? How do we use them appropriately without trying to increase the costs to the city of other developments? I think we've all been around long enough to realize that the Track 350 has served a purpose. We had a need, we looked at it and said this would meet the need and at the same time allow us to do something. So is there a need that we need to have, and do we have that discussion on how to get to that need strategically? And we have, you know, somebody who wants to do a hydro store kind of thing, and so we have to say, do we want that kind of process? I think we have to keep an open mind on, you know, our land, and at the same time realizing, even though we have a lot of it, it is a finite resource. That's part of that discussion, I think.
Okay.
If I could add to some points on goal number 4, or 3, sorry. First of all, I'm thrilled that we have a new building official here in town, and it seems like the hire is the right fit for him to be here for a longer amount of time than others have been in the past. So that's awesome, and he's highly qualified, knows the community. I think that's going to be great for achieving goals in this, or achieving our action steps in Goal 3. Also, thank you for the work on the customer service best practices manual and the concept of bringing that more to the surface across the board for all of our Strategy 3.5. expand resources that increase private reinvestment. In my mind, I believe that discussion surrounded a lot concerning the empty businesses in town. And I think if we were to look at recent accomplishments, that 12 kV line that went down Nevada Way was a big deal, because that was an obstacle to businesses because of the inferior or out-of-date power volume and methodology for connections that hopefully will encourage reinvestment in our downtown area at least. I'm not entirely certain on your recent accomplishments that assessed valuation increased 2.4%, what that really does for us. And if that was just the Department of Taxation saying your properties are now more valuable, and maybe that adds the opportunity for financing or something that we look at. But I don't know that we really did anything to accomplish that. It's just a factor of economics. But I think we should maybe consider, and in the looking ahead, I think as we're hitting on more the nail on the head there, we'll collaborate with the chamber to retain and expand existing businesses, collaborate with the LVGEA to attract new businesses, and evaluate the economic development needs. I know our economic development specialist is really engaged in the business community, and that's also been a really fruitful hire for the city. If you look at cost benefit, that's been a really good one, and we appreciate his efforts. But I think we maybe can consider through staff discussion some more focused action steps on what we might do to get actual money coming in the reinvestment side of it. I don't know that I have, I mean, that's when we're wandering into private investment, and public entities need to stay out of private investment, other than perhaps make it appealing. And there's only so much we could do as a municipality to do that. But I think there are some things maybe staff could identify that we could support, get behind in strategic planning for that.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mayor.
if I may, I think it's subtle, but we hope it will be effective. Just in the last 6 months, I mentioned the support we gave to moving the block party around Halloween from here over to Nevada Way, and even the investments on Nevada Way that made that possible, and we wanted to celebrate those, and then the upcoming New Year's Eve party. I say it's subtle because those are ways of bringing people into the community, and when people see that there's activity and that people want to be here, then they're going to want to have their businesses here, and hopefully that will have the desired effect that you just mentioned of filling up some of these vacant businesses. And then is there more that the city can do there? I think that's something that we can explore, definitely.
Ned, on the streetscape program, have you seen any benefits in that, or was that just like something to keep the businesses cleaning up their areas?
Yeah, two thoughts there. I
Or
think this is
nonprofits.
another example of the subtlety of some of the investments or the support that the city can give to make anything that we do to make the downtown area, or I would say any of our commercial areas, more attractive, and that will make people want to be there and spend time there. Again, I don't know how you draw a direct connection between that, but somehow that to me is an appropriate way
Keeping
for
the
us to
streets
support
clean.
businesses. Yeah, to have them there. The other one is we're working on, I can't remember what I said. We're working on updating the encroachment permit. Encroachment permit allows businesses to encroach into what is a public sidewalk and have their tables there. And we have that very successfully on Nevada Way and other areas. As we update that, some of that might include them keeping the areas clean or I know what I was going to mention too was the Main Street Group and the work that they've done. This is another example of a subtle intervention, was the word a subtle intervention that a public group can make that, the other day we were looking at planters that they would like to put on Nevada Way, and that will make it look more attractive, and then people will want to be here. And Yeah, and then the support that we give. I keep coming back to the Adventure Center and some of these other things that are coming along. I think we all know that it will have an impact, that and the museum will have an impact on our downtown, but I think we have yet to see how big the benefits of those will be. So we definitely want to find a way to capitalize those in any way that we can.
Absolutely, thank you.
I think we also need to have an educational tool in this, because so many times we don't encourage businesses to come here and flourish. We want to send them away. And so we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. And I just think there needs to be an educational piece so that the community understands why we're encouraging these businesses and why we want people to come to our downtown areas, so that there's some encouragement there instead of discouragement. So I think that
Yeah.
would be an important piece of education.
Yeah, maybe we can develop some informational materials about the benefits of investing in Boulder City. And certainly, our economic development coordinator, he's fulfilled a great role there, and kind of expand upon that role. And some of the cities where I've worked have had a business advocate, and that's part of his role too. He does it very well. But is there ways to expand upon that to attract new people here, so that when they come to Boulder City, they know they have a person to help them through?
And I think they've done a great job with the helmets, and that's really encouraged people. And the dog park commercials, those are little small snippets that people see, and maybe more of that type of thing that encourages people, not talk them to death, but to encourage them to do some of these things. Thank you.
Good.
More along the lines of what Mayor Hardy was talking about, and when I look at strategy 3.2, affordable housing, whatever that looks like in Boulder City, really, because of the market and what it bears. But housing that could encourage young families to possibly come back into our community and want to invest in our community. I see that you have consider preparation of a citywide housing report with recommendations. Did we not do a citywide housing report a while ago, Michael?
One of the goals in the master plan is to diversify housing. And we work with the county and the other jurisdictions to do an annual report on the needs of housing within the community. And so I think that's what you're referring to, is identifying the need for affordable housing within each jurisdiction. And so that's something that is conducted annually.
Okay, so how would this look different? The citywide housing report?
I think this would look at a more in-depth assessment of the housing that is in Boulder City, specifically to the different income brackets and where the needs are beyond the need for affordable housing. So it would look at a more in-depth analysis of that, because this partnership and collaboration with the other jurisdictions is specifically looking at affordable housing needs.
Right. So I see this is under long-term. Is that because it's currently happening, or because this is a ways off?
So with all of the action items that were outlined in the strategic plan, that is what was determined in terms of priority from the council as to which should be short-term, medium-term, or long-term. And so that's where it was placed. So this is an opportunity, if the council believes that this is a higher priority today, to move that up from long-term to medium or short-term.
I just think it's a priority for our community to make sure that we're a well-rounded community, in that we are an aging community. Not saying that all of us up here are part of the aging community, but there's a possibility of it, right? And that for the health of our community, not just our schools, but for the health of our community, it's good to have a diversified group, to use our parks, to use our facilities, to do all these things that we're doing to make this place a wonderful place to live. So I think it's important for us to recognize, how do we make this happen? How do we bring an incentivize or have some kind of way to bring this population back into Boulder City. So I think it's kind of a priority, because if we kick it down the can, kick it down for 5 years or whatever, we might be having one school here.
I have a question on this, the very thing she's talking about, on the middle of 3.1 strategy that says a workshop in June to receive a LWC recommendation to change Title 11. Is that something that's coming up, or is this something that's?
That
already
was a
happened?
recent accomplishment. So last June, we had the
Oh,
joint
last
workshop.
June. Okay.
Yeah, with the council and the planning commission. And through that joint workshop, we got direction on the areas of Title 11 that we need to focus on. And so the next steps, we're working on the RFP to move forward with selecting a consultant that will come in and actually do that work, follow through with the recommendations the council and planning commission provided us.
So that bumps it up right there, because you have something that's about to happen.
As it relates to Title 11, certainly, yeah.
I appreciate the comments. What we're looking at is, we look back and we say, well, when I was growing up, and right now, Boulder City doesn't have as many people in 10 years who are going to say, well, when I was growing up in Boulder City, that demographic is shrunken already. And so we're more worried about them surviving their e-scooters and their e-motorcycles right now, where normally they would be playing on the ball fields and whatever, and safer. But I think that is a reality of how do we make land available? How do we make a place available? How do we change the trajectory of the aging pattern in the city? Is that the priority? Is that a priority? How do we invite people to raise their families here? That's, I think, one of the things that we have to say, is that a priority for us?
I think it is a priority. When I first came on council, I had mentioned a lottery, and I found out that that's actually how Boulder City was started, with lotteries, with houses. I didn't know that, in the sense that, further discussion obviously on it, but it would be an avenue where if someone graduated out of high school, there would be some kind of pot of money they would have to put up there, to show that they were serious about buying a housing, and then this lottery would help them to get a house. Maybe pulling straws, but just something to get that going. And then I found out that's how Boulder City actually was built, on a lottery to get houses here. So maybe to dust that off and look at it again, or have something similar to that to help them along to get a house
I'm not
here.
going to say that sounds a lot like gambling.
Not that type of lottery, but yeah.
If I may, Councilmember Jorgensen, this particular item I put on here, I was thinking in terms of a housing report. Sometimes the basis, so if we have a goal of having more housing for families, for example, and then we would back that up a little bit. Well, we need a policy that would mean that we back that up a little bit. And really the basis for a lot of that, we could do some type of a simple housing study, and it would look at the population of Boulder City currently and the housing stock. How old is it? How many bedrooms? And then where are there disconnects? And then if we have a goal of having more of a certain type of housing, and the study shows that we don't have many opportunities for that, then we can begin to look around, say, well, where are there opportunities to develop that type of housing, or why is it needed, and form some goals and policies and strategies around that. So I guess I was looking at a first step for that is just to kind of, like a doctor would do, we would take the temperature of the city and say, well, what does our housing stock look like, and what are we providing for now? And that could be the start of that conversation. And then if we wanted to, we could take that a little further and say, well, what are the needs and what are the opportunities that we have?
Right, and
So-
I agree with that, in that I think that could be a good springboard for us, but I hate to put the springboard up in 5 years when we currently have a need. So my thought is, I see that it's down under long-term, so I just wonder if that is step one towards assessing if we have a need for families to come here, then maybe we need to move that up a little bit so that we're assessing and we're moving forward with what I hear is a concern that we need to have families come back with kids and be able to say, when I was growing up in Boulder City, hey, we love this city. There's a reason it is Old Town USA, where people still go to basketball games and watch parades. And so I think, but part of that is that it's centered around kids a little bit too, and families, and we're missing that piece lately for some reason.
Yeah, well, this conversation, this workshop, if the council agrees that, yeah, this is the time we can certainly move that up. I might offer that I think that type of a housing study might lend itself well to, it's not exactly the same, but as we're doing the zoning ordinance update, this wasn't part of the direction, but we could consider having this work along a parallel track, because then one might inform the other. So.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
I just want to lend a support to that concept. I think when we do that, I think it's easy to see the size of the lot and the size of the home that we would traditionally think, what's a starter size home that you can start with younger children and grow into and then move along, right? I think a lot of those of us that are a little bit older did that, starter home, and then sell and move into a bigger home, and then the next home, right? And I think an essential part of that study that we're talking about doing, or assessment, is we have to look at what might be the starter home size and lot size, right? Square footage of the property, and look around southern Nevada and see how much they're going for. And then I think we could probably have the data to overlay that price per square foot in certain parts of the valley and price per square foot in Boulder City. I think that data is very easily known. And then look at, if we do something, would it even ultimately be defined as reasonably affordable for a starter home? Because at this day and age,
Yeah.
it's hard to say that even after doing all of that,
Yes.
that it even would be. But at least we would know, right? But we can't not look at the market
Who it's-
around the area and then overlay that to what Boulder City's market is in reality, and then have the complete discussion and maybe decide what zoning might or might not be as a part of that.
And I think along those same lines, we have a growth ordinance that doesn't, I'm going to get in trouble, that doesn't limit people.
Right.
It limits construction, as it were, which is different than we don't want more people. We want to be able to control the growth for whatever reason it is, but we aren't trying to keep people out as much as we want to make sure that all the services are available for people, and particularly the growth of our younger generations. And I think we need to look at the duty that we have to allow the younger generation to grow up in an atmosphere that we treasure here in Boulder City, along all of those lines that you're talking about.
I really see.
Go ahead.
In the past, there has not been an appetite for this growth. That's why I think it would really behoove us to really have a conversation about it, some education about it, explain about our schools, to see if that appetite has changed some, because we can talk about it all day, but if we don't have the appetite out in the public to move forward, then we're just wasting our time. So I just think it's important to get education being a big key part about what's happening to our schools, because I think a lot of seniors do not know what's happening, because we do have an older generation here in Boulder City, do not know what's happening to our schools. So again, I think it's an education piece. And I'm all for having that conversation, but I think it should be opened up so that we get to hear everything. And I agree with this, not the people, if we could get some families in here, like in townhomes. Townhomes are a great and I think Steve spoke about that. That's a great opportunity for a family to come in and live and not have to pay so much because land is becoming more and more valuable. But what does our community want to do? And I think that's the biggest question for us before we move forward.
Thank you.
Great.
We haven't
Great.
solved the problem,
We'll keep going, yeah.
But we'll take that and
but we're
put
listening.
that into something. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll make that into something.
So the idea is to move it up then
Yeah.
in this, in the
Yeah,
priority? Okay.
definitely hearing that loud and clear, that's a priority, so. All right, goal 4 is around historic preservation. Again, through the survey, the community survey, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. We can continue to do events like the Historic Preservation Workshop that's coming up. Certainly, we have the annual Historic Preservation Day and other activities there. Oh, and then one of the strategies that is long-term, the M is missing, increase the use of city-owned historic physical assets. So, yeah, we can take a little bit more look at that. Certainly, the water filtration plant has had a lot of, we've $325,000 has gone into renovation of the water filtration plant. Now we can ask the question, well, to what end? Is there some way that we can use that more in the community? So, and I put on here too the airport hangar. That's a little bit longer term out there, but the historic airport hangar is an opportunity that's waiting as soon as a few other things fall into place. But
Going back to the housing, or not the housing, I'm sorry, the historical building usage, that's something that I'm sure could be talked about in the January 20th workshop. Is that what that's for?
yes,
So
yeah. Let me
That's an
see.
easy one.
Yeah, historic preservation, or historic property information and resources, certificate of appropriateness requirements. So just anything related to historic preservation in Boulder City, building permit requirements, residential and commercial grants. So my understanding is they'll have a station for each one of those and people to talk about it. So in a way, it's kind of like raising awareness, but providing the information to people about what resources and requirements are out there for historic preservation.
Now, that's primarily focused on property owners, right? So I think when we're talking about this, I'd love to see an agenda item coming, and again, this have to be vetted through the council, but to have a serious discussion by council about potential uses, I'd love staff to come forward. The water filtration plant just sits essentially idle and vacant, 99% of the time, other than a tour to see it. To have some discussion about what can be done of mutual benefit to the community at large and to the city as the owner of the property, right? And any others that might be out there that might benefit from that. I think it's time to open that back up rather than just let historic buildings sit empty, because then it's just where you pour money into it, but nobody's being able to enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, maybe,
So now that Public Works has done a phenomenal job in bringing power and opening up the windows to the historic water filtration plant, making it more accessible, one of the next steps in the process, because one of our obligations through the CCCHP grant is to have it utilized as a cultural resource. So one of the next steps is to engage with the Historic Preservation Commission on ideas of how to better utilize the building and then bring that forward to the council.
Very good.
so unless there's other things, I think we've got some significant work going on under that goal. That was 5. Let's go to 6. I feel like I skipped over one.
5.
The big one, yeah. Oh, that was 4. Yeah, we're going to go to 5. Oh, yeah, there we're going. Thank you. Dependable infrastructure. Not that we need to talk about that. Yeah. So again, the big thing that we have going on here potentially is we can bring back circulating an RFP, as I mentioned, for a partnership with a firm to come in and it would be a multi-year project to some of the upgrade needs that have been identified in our city facilities, and then folding in some of our CIP projects for city facilities. Oh, and then under this one, I would add that we've already talked about the second potable water line we're going to move that up. That's a long-term strategy. We'll move that up, and then continuing to work with SNWA on reuse of the effluent and the ADA transition plan. So we have several significant items under that line.
I would think, and this isn't on the strategic plan, but it's on your plan, certainly, in how would I say it, the effective staffing to make sure that we have the right expertise in the right places between Public Works and Utilities, so that we don't have a drop. Our last Utilities director had a tremendous amount of expertise, right? Subject matter expert in a lot of the utility management, particularly on the electric side. And I think we'd love to see that we make sure that there's not a drop in finding the right person, the qualifications. I mean, our past utilities director I think we could define that, he was a unicorn, right? Had lots of talents and local exposure and expertise in so many aspects of it. And really, let's make sure that we have the right person to help manage and guide us in the way that we make decisions regarding our infrastructure.
Yeah, I kind of skimmed over that, but yeah, mentioned on there under strategy 5.5 had to do with, I just mentioned vacancy in the utilities department, but yeah, definitely a key, however that is filled, definitely a key hire. Yeah. All right, so 5, I think we're covered pretty well. Goal number 6, again, public health and accessibility. One of the things under here, and I don't know if the council has, what your thoughts are on this, I'd be very interested to know. We, used ARPA funds to fund for 4 years, I believe it was, the community resource liaison at the Boulder City Hospital. It's Jennifer Headland, has done great work. And the quarterly reports that I receive from her, I'm always very impressed with the type of work that she does in helping individuals in need, and has just been very effective in fulfilling her role. That funding will expire. I believe it was funded for 4 years. So just partnering. The only way I could describe it is partnering with the hospital to explore alternatives for that role. It's been so effective. It would be hard to see that. We don't want to see it go away. But I don't have an answer for you here, or even a suggestion. But
She's good for another 3 years, right?
how much longer?
2 more?
years.
2 more? Okay, because I remember that came up.
So just a thought on that. But here under this, again, we have the City Hall ADA access improvements coming up, the ADA transition plan. I definitely want to include this as some type of question or set of questions in the community survey. And then the accessibility working group, I think I mentioned, had identified the need for some type of an emergency response plan for elderly and disabled residents. And so we can continue to work on that if that's something that they want to focus on. And so that gives us a nice body of work under this area.
Has the discussion been had with the hospital at all regarding that? 2 years, this expires, their desire at all to keep that going?
It's been mentioned, but not in any detail. But I have been asked about it by community groups.
Could we go in and start initiating that?
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. And then coming up the home stretch on goal number 7, again, we have the direction from the council regarding a in-depth overview of the fire department and their needs for facility staffing, equipment, training, and then I would include in that, let's see, what else did we have here? Oh, in the police department, we have some retirements coming up. We want to be mindful of our recruitment processes. We do have, just by way of, we do have 2 recruits in the academy over in Henderson, and I hear very good things that they're doing well. They'll graduate in March, so that will be a welcome them in here into the community.
Along that line, do we have something that allows us to put them under some obligation to come to work for us, or how does that work?
No, is the chief still here? Oh, he is. I don't, might have the chief come up and comment on that.
So I know,
Good
for
question.
instance, in the state, people who are in the highway patrol quickly figure out that the locals pay more than the state does, and they come to the local entities.
Well,
So-
there are employees, they're in the academy, they change their job title to police officer when they graduate, but we don't have any kind of an employment contract that requires they stay for so many years after they graduate. They're free to leave and lateral anytime.
So what is our pay scale versus other entities?
I think our pay scale is competitive at the starting level. I think there's some disagreement from the unions on that, but our recruitment for laterals has dried up. We haven't seen a lateral recruit in quite some time. So I don't know if that's got to do with pay or it's just that people aren't in the process of moving. There's a lot less movement of people across the country moving than there were a couple of years ago. We do have a lateral coming from Cincinnati that's going to be starting in January. But after that lateral, we have no more laterals in the hopper. So it's kind of a cyclic. And we want people that are leaving because they want to move for the betterment of their family, not somebody who's angry at their current employment situation, because eventually they will be angry at their new employment situation also, because it's not that much different. We're all pretty much the same when it comes to that. So we've been really lucky. Most of the laterals we've hired, they did it for the right reasons. They wanted to improve their family lifestyle, the things they want to concentrate on, not that they were angry with their employer or frustrated with their employer.
Leading question, so we never have anybody leave Boulder City who's angry?
We haven't had anybody lateral to another agency since I've been here. We have one that is going home later this year up to the state of Washington, and that's why he's leaving, but his family that's having to move. I don't think anybody is lateraled that I can, well, we just did. We had one go to North Las Vegas this year. That's the first lateral we've had since I've been here.
Thank
But
you.
they offered him a $40,000 bonus to go there.
Wow.
He didn't turn it down.
He did not.
So other than that, we look forward to coming back to you with the results of the review that we're going to do for the fire department. One other thing well, 2 things with the police department, then I'll be done. I mentioned that we did the remodeling and we have the new dispatch center. We do need to install the technology over there. I understand that tell me if you've heard this before, that the price tag came in higher than what we had anticipated. So we will, of course, look for grant funding on that, and we'll look for other funding mechanisms. We have that, and then I know the chief, one of the items, this is under strategy 7.4, one of the measures was for accreditation, and our fire department is accredited, and we looked into what it will take, some type of accreditation for our police department. As I mentioned, we have the process, how much it will cost, and what the timeline will be. The chief and I have discussed, there's a idea of having someone assigned as a professional accreditation or professional standards officer, so something that we can explore there. And then, and I should have mentioned too, we have currently ongoing an assessment of our police department facilities. So they're looking at 3 different options. If they stay in the historic building where they're at now, it's a good location. What other upgrades or facility needs are there? is there another existing building in town that they might move to? And then if it wasn't that, if there was a new facility that was built, what would that look? So that will be an assessment that we will be bringing back to the council at some point too. That's been a pretty big project as well. So I think that outlines a pretty good work plan that we've heard. I think one of the goals here was to identify some of the, because we've completed some of the items that were in the original short term, that gives us some capacity to work on some new things. So we'll move some of those, based on the feedback that we've gotten today, we'll move some of these that were considered long-term items, we'll move those up and begin focusing on them. And as we go along, I'll continue to report back to you on what we're working on and developing a work plan for that, kind of recalibrating our strategic plan within the framework that's established. But thank you.
Ned, I'd like to say thank you for your passion for all this. You seem excited about getting your hands into it and following up on the things that we've asked for. So thank you and your staff for what you do. I really am looking forward to the emergency management preparedness side of it on that. Things evolved, batteries and all that, fires. So, that takes us even beyond this strategic plan for urgency because of technology. So thank you for staying on top of that as well.
Well, and the basis for our study will be the community risk assessment, and Chief
Yes.
Chesser had to leave, but the update to that assessment has been done, and so that will be the basis. As we look at that, then we'll look for any gaps or disconnects between our current facilities, our current staffing and equipment, et cetera, and then the needs of the community. And we have, as you heard, we have a lot of unique aspects to this community. We cover a very large geographic territory. We do a lot of technical rescue as well as a lot of picking people up off the floor. So we have a very wide variety of services that need to be provided by a limited number of staff. And how do we do that in the best way possible, I think, is the task that we have cut out for us.
Any other comments or questions?
I would just comment, I'm so grateful that, past councils have put this in place. This had been missing for some time, and it's really critical to objectively, methodically, and thoughtfully move forward for the betterment of our community and for preserving and maintaining the quality of life that we have here. It's just so essential. And I've mentioned this to you. We're hoping for the long game with you. And you've got a lot of staff, and your opportunity is to lead them through this. There's so many more things that you need to do as a leader that aren't these, right? And so to have a quality staff and a quality leader to help have your staff accomplish these things, and the vision that we're working together with you. And I look forward for the years to come, or at least as long as the voters will have me here, working together with you on our strategic planning and moving forward. So, thanks, Mayor.
I know there's many hands make light work, and I know there's many people in this room and then also not in this room who have forward-looking eyes to make this community what it is here, and I'm grateful to every single person who comes to work here for the city and creates a culture and a community that is proactive and positive. I mean, for the most part, that's what I get from people, is they always have a positive experience when they come in here. I feel confident to forward any person who comes to me with a concern to any one of you, and I'm appreciative of that, because that leaves me, maybe not the expert in all things, with the opportunity to lead them in the right direction with confidence. So thank you. Thank you for working hard on this. Thank you for moving up the ones that we talked about. Thank you for looking out for our city and for the people who work here.
I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Appreciate preparation and everything that's come through all the staff on this, and pass their appreciation on from us. I would apologize. I understand that I cut public comment off too soon at the beginning. but I will open public comment now for all those who would like to call in. 702-589-9629. 702-589-9629. Anyone here in chambers, more than welcome to come up and have any public comment you'd like. If you call in or speak from the podium, you have 3 minutes. We will wait a little bit, Madam City Clerk, and see if anyone is going to call in. Seven oh two 589-9629 for those willing to call in. And by the way, their public comment can be given in written format, should that be needed. Seven oh two 589-9629. See no one on the phone, no one here in chambers. We will close public comment. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.